What's up, everybody? How's it going? How's it going? How's it going? How's it going? Oh, man. So, y'all get kind of a surprise stream today because I just decided, what the hell? I got time. Let's stream. So, we're going to start just a touch early here. Don't need to wait for the countdown. That's one of the best parts about being in charge is we kind of get to set the groundwork. What's up, everybody? Oh, my goodness. There we go. Don't need me in stereo. I got that fixed. One of the things I want to remind everybody is that while we're on YouTube, there is about a 20-second delay. So if I am slow responding to you, it's not because I didn't see it. It's just because there's a delay. Just kind of how it works. But how's everybody doing? There's already 6 of y'all here. I'm very excited about that since it's kind of a surprise start for everybody. But yeah, thanks for showing up. One of the things I want to talk about a bit, and we can get into, I guess, some gameplay here in a bit as well, because I know people like seeing that. But at the same time, I'm kind of curious, for those of you that are here, where are you at right now with Standard? You know, I'm very curious, like just taking the pulse of the room, because some people are still playing regular Standard and don't necessarily like it, but they're struggling through it, and they feel that's a better option than playing Alchemy Standard. And then there's some people that are playing Alchemy Standard and they love it, and it's a breath of fresh air from playing the other Standard, regardless of whatever resources they need to spend, right? And I think there's ups and downs to both sides. I'm just kind of curious how each of you feels and what's kind of going on there for everybody, because I think everyone's experience is going to be different. And I like, when I do anything or I do any commentary or, you know, I do anything on my podcast or whatever, and I mention community, I at least like to truly take the pulse of the room before I go speaking out of turn, you know, because I know my experience, especially as a content creator, is going to be very different than what a lot of y'all deal with as far as content goes, or actually just as far as the gameplay goes. You aren't making content at all, obviously. So that I'm just curious. So feel free to just post it in the chat, because I'm just wondering how everybody's sort of feeling about Standard right now. Whether you and don't come into this like bash other people, just like your personal view. Like, are you enjoying regular Standard? Are you enjoying Alchemy more, and why? Like, that's all I really want to know. No personal interest in Alchemy, but happy people have options. You know, that's sort of the way I feel about a lot of things. You know, like I don't play any historic hardly ever. But, you know, people enjoy historic. I don't have a problem with it. The same way that, you know, I play Legacy like once a year and I keep a Legacy deck around. But, like, it's cool. The format's there for other people. You know, like, I don't have a problem with it. So, yeah, actually, I've played 0 games of Pioneer. You know, that's another one that, at least pre-COVID, people were starting to really enjoy. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. Blurgle says, Alchemy to me is meh. Honestly, I miss paper play more than anything else. You know, that's fair, though. That's fair. I think some people are... I mean, like, and here's the thing. Like, I still enjoy paper play. You know, whenever I rarely get the chance to play it. I've actually had a group of friends invite me out to do some drafting here soon, so I may do that with them. But, you know, I still like the idea of getting to play paper. I still want to be playing paper on a weekly basis. It's just, while we can't, you know, Arena's going to just serve as my outlet for Magic. Jonathan says, I don't play Standard or Alchemy. Don't really have an opinion. Well, fair enough, right? If you don't play Standard, you don't have an opinion. I guess that question would be then, do you play like Historic by chance? Because Alchemy has definitely affected Historic. So, you know, that would be an interesting opinion to have as well. Because this is something we're probably going to talk about on our podcast this week. We record our 114th episode tomorrow. So we'll probably be discussing some of this on there for sure. Charles says, I play Alchemy mostly. It's the same as Standard with more cards to me. Historic is kind of new for me, so Alchemy stuff hasn't been a big worry. Yeah, the other interesting thing too is because, like, really we need a few different things in Arena right now, because like Historic is still very expensive. Like, I've been playing since the beginning of Arena, and I still find Historic to be kind of pricey. So I can only imagine if you picked it up in the last 6 months, like, that's got to be tough. So I don't know what the solution is there, but there's got to be something. I think it would be fine even if they let you, like, pick what packs you got as rewards for your mastery pass stuff. Like that would be cool. Maybe I don't know. There's got to be sell some packages of packs that give you a variety if you're trying to build for certain things. Like I don't know. It feels like there's just got to be something. Sam says, I prefer alchemy since it doesn't feel solved, similar to how Stork feels compared to standard. Yeah, I do think to some extent, though, like every format eventually hits, I'll say in quotes, a solved point. But I do think that is a thing that's going to happen regardless of the format. I don't think there's a good way to fix that, unfortunately. I think it's always going to be a thing. And we're starting to see a little bit of that in alchemy as you're starting to see a lot more of the sacrifice decks and stuff, which, by the way, I'm kind of working on a weird metagame deck for alchemy standard, if you want to call it that. So we'll see if it turns into anything. It's just something I'm kind of messing with. But the sacrifice, sanguine, brushstroke, whatever decks are starting to already become a thing. We're starting to see quite a bit of those. And the same thing in historic. You've gone through stretches where the Mizzet mastery decks are a thing, and then the Azorius control decks were a thing, and like it's kind of going to be a thing in every format for a while. Like it just eventually you hit a point, and we even see that in paper where there'll be some hot deck in modern for 6 to 9 months. There'll be some hot deck in legacy for 3-4 months, right? Like there's always going to be a thing, and there's no way to avoid that. It's just this is the strategy that beats whatever the current strategy is, and people are just going to play that for a while, and then eventually that becomes the dominant strategy. Then all the big minds go into their labs and they come out with some ideas that beat it. And eventually one of those sticks. And then that's the new king of the hill or whatever, if you will, right? It just happens. I don't think there's any way to avoid that. Country Fried says, standard is my jam. Alchemy is a fresh format that I relax and play for fun. I could see that too, right? If you got used to playing regular standard and you're running into epiphany decks and mono white all the time or whatever, and then you get something that's completely different, even if it's not hugely better, it's still going to feel better. You know what I mean? So I get all the good vibes with it right now. I really do. I don't fault anybody, honestly. It's totally understandable. Also, by the way, I asked people in the last stream, like, do y'all have a problem or prefer microphone on screen or off screen? Like, where you can see my microphone or not see it, or less of it, I guess. Because, like, obviously the sound quality is much better if you get my sultry tones right into the microphone. But at the same time, like, I don't know, there's something good about a crisp screen without a microphone in the way. So I'm experimenting with both. If you notice on my YouTube videos, I've like slowly migrated it so closer. So you get a little bit of a different thing. We'll see though. I don't know how I'm going to end up leaving it, but I raised it up anyway because I had it set in a different position, but you can't really see it here off camera, but this allows me to sort of swing my arms a little bit and not hit stuff as much. Jonathan says, I will say, so long as it is sustainable, I have digital cards and on-the-fly balancing an arena via alchemy might make things feel fresh. Yeah, I think that's still kind of the thing right now, right? We don't know how long they're going to take to, like, at what point, like, how long are they going to wait before they decide to rebalance cards, right? Like, are they going to wait a month? If we see that, let's say all these sanguine brushstroke sacrifice decks or whatever are the jam, right? And we start seeing maybe it was the video I put up today. Yeah, I think it was, where I played like 3 or 4 in a row of some version of it, right? Like if that becomes the thing, is Wizards going to wait like 2 weeks and say, okay, we need to go like rebalance some of these cards we made, right? Or do they wait a month and let the format just stick that way, and then maybe we only get one update to alchemy each season, because by then we're starting, we go into the next set season or whatever. So maybe it's regular standard, alchemy comes out, you get one alchemy update, and then 3 to 4 weeks later we're into the next set, and maybe that's all it is. So maybe we don't get constant rebalancing, it's just like a possible one time and then nothing else. Or maybe they're going to do it every 2 weeks until the next set comes out to make sure it stays fresh. Right, that's the thing I was telling people. Like, until we see a lot of that in action, we don't really know what the plan is. So we can't talk about like what the long-term feel of it is because we don't know. You know what I mean? Like it's cool right now, but like we don't know what that means. Like they have the ability to do this whenever. We don't know when whenever is, and I think that's the biggest difference. Country Fried says they don't care, just do whatever feels good with the mic. Fair enough. Wish there was a separation for alchemy and historic. You know, Jonathan, I've heard that from a few people, and I think that's something Wizards has also noted that they have heard clearly. So would not be shocked if I see that on, either this next update or the following update, if they end up deciding, okay, we're going to have two different things. I think, if I were guessing, I think some of it is sometimes Wizards gets concerned that if there are too many ways to play, then some of those will not have enough players in their queue. And I think the idea was, okay, well, we want all this to be in historic, so there's always somebody to play with or whatever. But like, it feels like there are enough people that would play alchemy historic and regular historic to where it probably isn't an issue. Or they could at least try it and just see what happens. I don't think it breaks it to allow it to be separate. AWEP, is that how we say that? AWEP TR? Says, I haven't yet delved into alchemy. I'm not super excited by the idea of spinning wild cards on those cards. Do you know if they're going to have an all access week to try them out? I do not believe that's been announced, so if there is going to be one, I don't know about it. Country Fried says rebalancing. They have to decide a time frame. Just doing it whenever starts to feel weird. Plus, there's going to be heavy blow black. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we, as players, we can't determine when a change may or may not be coming. And that's a little concerning for some people. I don't think it's a major concern because for the most part, I think the rebalance stuff will be mostly fine. But I think it is still a nice to know. Kind of how before. But I will say this. The problem, though, if you're in Wizards' shoes, is before they used to have a set schedule when they announced like when bannings were going to be and everything else, right? But then if something happened, they were kind of beholden to that schedule and then people got mad. So then Wizard was like, okay, cool. We're going to give ourselves the freedom to, make changes to formats as necessary. And then people got upset because they're like, I liked it better when it was on a schedule. So it's just like, it's tough. I don't know what the right decision is for them, honestly. I think there's going to be people that complain regardless. The joke is if you put $100 bills in booster packs, Magic players would complain about how they're folded. And sometimes you probably feel that way if you're at Wizards. Jeff says, I'm primarily a limited player, so alchemy doesn't affect me in a direct sense. I'm trepidatious that they'll try rebalancing cards for draft mid-season at some point. No, I don't think you really change it for drafts. Like, the cards don't affect draft enough to even justify rebalancing them. Like, the worst case scenario would be if there were some rare that was just nigh unbeatable if your opponents had it. Then they might do it in that case, but that would be like a rare situation. I don't think there's a reason for them to rebalance for the purposes of draft. That doesn't really do much, honestly. I think they would leave that alone. Bet that we're a ways away. Yeah, I just don't see a reason to do it for draft. It's not like draft falls off that much. And for people that want limited play, the easiest solution is just rotate other drafts available, right? Like, they could be like, all right, we see things slowing down on Innistrad draft. Let's open up a draft where you can do Innistrad, Midnight Hunt, and Crimson Vow, right? Oh, okay, well, that's slowing down. Let's open it up where people can draft, I don't know, Amonkhet, since they haven't been able to draft that. Let's make an Amonkhet draft and let people draft that for a while. And then they can get cards to play Historic with, right? So opportunities like that are pretty easy to change things up for draft. Like, you can't change things up easily for standard. You know what I mean? Like, if things are a problem in standard, or constructed for that matter, there's no easy switch. You can't just be like, okay, now everybody play this, right? Whereas with limited, you can literally just unlock limited formats and let people play. And people that like playing limited will change up and do those other things. Because those are going to be fresh to some number of players that, didn't get to play with Kaladesh, didn't get to play with Amonkhet. Hell, some of them didn't even get to play with just other sets that were already readily available on Arena, right? So those are easy switches they can flip whenever they want to. So I think it's a whole different thing for different players. And again, you're talking about some of those formats, if they open them up, are fresh to people. So people are going to go spend money just to do that. And some of people would do it just as a way to get cards to eventually have in Historic, right? So it still has a purpose. Like, so they still have tools they can use there before they even have to really considering rebalancing anything for limited play. Country Fried says they go monthly. They can go monthly, but no refunds on wild cards would kill it for me. I'd stay in my lane with standard period. Fair enough. Fair enough. Quinn says disagree. Changing a couple of commons would make an entirely different format. Yes, but it's not necessary. Like it's just not. Like the formats don't become boring enough or stale enough to where switching things up. Like, cause here's the thing: if somebody just burn out on playing, let's just use Crimson Vow since it's current, right? If you're just burnt out on playing Crimson Vow limited, them coming and changing 5 commons isn't going to make you more excited to play Crimson Vow limited. You're just burnt out on the format, right? But if they bring up a whole new set or a new mix of packs or whatever, well, now you're like, I might try that. You know what I mean? That's the difference. Whereas when you're playing constructed, your choices are either play in this format or don't. You know what I mean? There's no way to change that up other than like bannings and other things, whatever, which players don't like. You know, so you don't really have any other choices if you're on Wizard side. But when it comes to limited, you don't really have to touch it. Once people are burnt out, you just give them another pack of cards to play with, you know, or another set of cards to play with. I think it's completely different. New drafts come around so quickly, hard to, yeah, true. Depends on how many times you draft, but I would agree for the most part that's true. Yeah, and that's true. Some people will draft more than others. Like, that is 100% true. There are people who draft literally as much as they can. You know, and then there's other people that draft like once a week. So it definitely will change your perspective. Hey, Ryan, how's it going? One of the interesting things, you know, and this is the other hard part that people have a hard time grasping. But and I can tell y'all from my time at Wizards and everything else, like I've seen, I can't tell you the numbers, but I've seen the numbers. But I also knew this because I had a retail store. I know a bunch of retailers. I still talk to retailers pretty much weekly. Limited play is played like a tenth as much as constructed play. Like it's not close. Like for real. Now I'm not saying it's not an insignificant number. I'm not going to say that. It's not an insignificant number. And there are some stores that only do limited. They only do draft and sealed, right? And they make their money on that. So like, not saying it doesn't deserve the same consideration or whatever. There's a reasonable enough part of the community you have to give attention to that. However, constructed play vastly dwarfs limited play. Like, and I brought this up before, and people thought I'm just like hating on draft and limited or whatever. I was like, I'm not hating on limited players. All I'm ever saying is just like, it's easier to do things to make limited players happy because there's fewer of them, and there's not a saturation really. It's just the way it is, right? But it becomes harder when you're trying to balance everything for all the constructed formats. The only gripe I ever had is having to have cards that are terrible, unusable, unplayable basically for constructed that exist strictly for limited play. Right? That's the only gripe I ever had, was that cards should at least, like, if you're going to give me a bad card, right, and just say like, okay, this has to exist for limited play purposes, right? We need a couple more uncommons that do a certain thing, or we need a couple more bodies of a certain size, or whatever. At least make them like relevant creature types that some new player making a theme deck can have, like an extra goblin or an extra zombie or whatever, right? Like that's the only thing I ask. It's just like, if you have to make a bad card, at least make it somewhat relevant, appealing to somebody. But when it's like also bad and it's like a whatever that big, like, you know, I don't know, like a 5/6 homunculus with no ability, it's like nobody wants that. Like literally nobody wants that. Like why? But if you make it at least like, hell, I don't know, like a big dumb merfolk or something, like, then at least there's a group of players that'll be like, hey, at least I get a large merfolk, because normally we don't get large merfolk or whatever, right? Like, you know, like there's something there you can do to make it relevant. Though I have a lot of ideas. Having been on like nearly every part of the business end of Magic, like I have so many ideas. I really do. Let me get caught up on here. So let's see. Caretaker seems pretty rough to play against, although it's a mythic, so it's an edge hit. Yeah, that's exactly it. If it's a mythic, I don't think you're going to see much change on those. Speaking of gambits, I got quite a few. Not sure I understood that. I don't even know if I said Gambit. But hey, anyway, welcome. Country Fried Wonderstone agreed. Limited doesn't get played around here unless it's for release weekend. Yeah, that happens in a lot of places. Garrett says, true, I think MTG made draft more achievable, so there's a bigger spotlight on it. Yeah, I think there's something to that. I think a few more people probably play than would have played before. But I still stand by the fact that I don't think it's the same. What's the right word? The same level of like draft enthusiast that's playing. Some people are playing out of necessity because that's the way they believe to get cards so they can start playing constructed, right? Those aren't people trying to learn the format and the ins and outs and all the best picks. Like they're just doing enough to get by, rare draft, hope they get like 2 wins or something, get a small reward, pack it up, see you later, let's play the next draft, right? That's what a lot of players are right now. And nothing wrong with that. I think if that's still your choice, go for it. I tell people enjoy the game however you want to enjoy it. Like we can totally enjoy it differently. But I do think that's a different type of player. Like if I were to be making a player profile, I would almost say the person who profiles to play Magic and Arena, if we took them as a whole, probably going to profile different than the player that shows up to play a weekly draft at their local store. Probably not the same player in a lot of cases. Now, there will be some overlap, but I don't think they'd be mostly the same player. But when it comes to standard, it's largely... Now, the only difference would be if some number of them were only ever playing Magic digitally versus playing paper. But in my experience, the people that enjoyed playing standard in paper also wanted to play it on Arena. And I think that's going to be some of your separation factor because of Alchemy. That being said... right now, I don't even know if you can do Alchemy events online. I think Hooglin was supposed to be running one. But my understanding was if you tried to do a friend request or whatever, you couldn't play friend requested games with Alchemy cards. I don't know if that's true. I just saw somebody posting about that earlier. So I haven't tried it. I know this weekend, by the way, let me share with y'all a link that's pretty important. If y'all want to play for prizes and a free tournament, and it's regular standard, it's not Alchemy. For those of you who don't know, I'm part of the Degenerate Gaming group, and they decided to host an event this weekend, which yours truly will be doing some commentary for probably about half of it. Here's a tournament. I believe it's got 13 spots left. Let me double check. I have to refresh this window. It's got 13 spots left. The event is completely free, and there's actual prizes, and it's regular standard format. So if you want to hop in, now is the time because it will definitely fill up at this rate before Friday. And that's the cutoff because the event is on Saturday. So if you want to check it out, I believe we're starting coverage at 9 a.m. Pacific time, so noon East Coast time. So not crazy early. If you want to get in and play a tournament for free and still play prizes, follow that link there. You know, Country Fried says you're already signed up. See, there you go. The other cool thing is I think some number of creators are signed up. I know a decent number of people in the Degenerate Gaming group that are all streamers and content creators have signed up. And there's a few others that played the Creator Open event last month that also signed up for this. So there's a chance you're going to get to play against other content creators and stuff too. So that could be kind of fun. Garrett says, yeah, I got back into Paper Magic through MTGA. Got into Pauper around 2019. Yeah, and that's the thing too, right? I think... you know, people say, well, a lot of people are only playing on Arena, not playing paper or whatever. But I think that's more, at least it feels like it. And I don't know if this is true, but it feels like more of a result of the pandemic than a paper versus digital thing. You know, because honestly, I could say that, well, I've only been playing Arena for the last 2 years. I've played 0 paper games of Magic. Well, that's not true. If you count the Commander games I've played over Spell Table, there's that. But as far as actual, like, tournament or competitive things or whatever, where I used to play basically weekly, I've played none since the pandemic. So basically 2 years I haven't played Paper Magic. Not saying I don't want to. And I've talked to other people that said, hey, I would like to try paper events at some point. I see these tournaments and I see the stuff online and it looks cool. But, you know, they don't feel comfortable going to a store right now. They don't feel comfortable sitting in a group of like 30, 40 plus people in a cramped space, which rightfully so. I don't blame them. I'm pretty healthy. I've got all my shots and everything, and I still don't want to do it. So, you know, I don't fault them for it. It's going to be a big deal for me to go out in a week or two just to draft with a group of 6 people. You know, like I haven't, outside of one event I did commentary for, and I mostly spent my time in the commentary booth, I haven't been around a group of people bigger than about 10, unless you include the grocery store, probably, in the last year plus 2 years almost. So, yeah. I believe the correct about friend challenges as the gladiator community has not had to make a decision on alchemy. Okay, that makes sense. Country Fried says, yeah, COVID had a ton to do with feeling like Arena took over paper. A lot of the locals didn't return to the store either. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, Solvik says, hey, welcome, by the way. I play more paper than digital right now, but it's a small group. Yeah, and see, and that's the thing. The people that are playing paper, just like you're saying, are usually in small groups. They're not congregating at a store. They're not congregating at an event. I mean, I'm going to, peek behind the curtain. I'm talking with a convention series. I don't want to give anything away, but a convention group for next year about possibly doing some level of commentary for their events or whatever. And like, we don't even know what all that's going to entail right now. Like, how many events may even happen, what commentary even looks like, what the events look like, how many people you can have. You may have to reduce attendance even if you do the events. Like, there's a lot of things that still have to be decided. So, I mean, it sucks, but that's just kind of the world we live in for the time being, and you can't really avoid it. And I wish there was a better way or a better solution or something I could tell you, but like, this is just how we have to operate. Now, I will say this. So far, from what I've seen, apparently with the Magic Vegas event, there was, to my knowledge, no reported cases of COVID related to the event. There was one person, I think, that had a scare or something, and that was the only thing I saw posted. But like, no outbreak, no nothing. And admittedly, they took a lot of precautions. Everybody was masked. You had to show proof of vaccination or a recent COVID test. Like, they had everything spaced out in the room. There was lots of hand sanitizer. There were, the way they did their queues in line kept people spaced out. Like, there was a bunch of things they did to try to make sure nobody got sick. So that was actually pretty cool to see that, it could still be done, if you're willing to take those precautions. Yeah, Emerald City Comic Con was 30% capacity. I could see that. I had some people ask me if I was going, and they were disappointed I wasn't. But yeah, I just didn't go. Comic Con just ran here in Melbourne and seems to have gone well. Yeah, and I will say this though, Solvix, like, y'all down there in Australia, and for real, especially New Zealand, like, y'all are treating COVID way better than we're treating it here. Like, y'all are like, what? We got 30 cases. Shut stuff down. We're going to deal with this. Like, here, we're just like, 800 people died yesterday. Oh, that sucks. Like, that's for real. That's how we're rolling around here. Like, it's crazy. One person definitely positive and played coy as to whether or not he was really vaxxed. Yeah, this is saying that's the only one I've heard of, though, Jeff. Like, nobody else has had anything else come up. So, yeah, even my store crowd has slimmed significantly. So much of the regular events MTG have been suspended. Yeah, I get it. And some of that too, I think, has to do with the Magic player base being older. The average Magic player age is closer to 30 than it is to 20. I'll definitely tell you that. And with that means you also have people who have responsibilities. They have jobs. They've got families, or sometimes even elderly or grandparents, parents they're taking care of, right? Those are people that aren't going to be able to just frequent into stores and events regularly. So that definitely changes who you're going to see. Whereas, like, if you're talking about a lot of other games, it's going to be teens up to low 20s probably that, a lot of them may just be themselves or teenagers or, living at home alone or whatever. And those people can have a little bit more freedom to go do that, right? I mean, not saying I would encourage it, but I get it. It's a whole different thing. Even in my house, I have people that live with me, so I would have to be careful. But if I was single and I was like, nah, I'm home alone, like, whatever, I'm not going to lie, I might take a couple more chances. As long as I was going, like, straight to the event and straight home, like, probably, but in the situation I'm in, I'm just treating it different. We haven't been able to fire drafts at my LGS lately. Yeah, that seems to be a common thing among a lot of stores. Got to run, but good catching. Well, thanks for stopping by, Garrett. You know, the thing I would say is it's not awful for game stores that events haven't been making, because most of the game stores will tell you, at least the ones that were savvy and kept up with everything, their sales have actually been very good over the last 2 years. A lot of them have said these have been their record years. So I can tell you that's not hurt a lot of them. It's actually been fine. Now, I will tell you one of the things that is going to be unfortunate for some players once, hopefully, this whole pandemic situation settles down, is that a lot of stores have learned to deal with their business without having weekly events to the level they've been doing them. And and I can tell you because I talk to retailers regularly, a lot of what their discoveries were that, well, I don't have to run events at break even prices. I don't have to give away the farm to get people in the store, right? Because they realize ways they can make money. Matter of fact, some of y'all are going to go back to your local stores and see that they've even shrunk their play space to bring in more retail stuff because they're making more money off of it, right? That's a for real thing. And I always cautioned players of this when they would try to push their local stores to, like, well, you should be giving more prizes away. Entry fees should be lower. Like, we should be able to draft later at night and blah, blah, all these things, right? That cost stores more money. I kept telling them, like, there's going to be a point where this is not going to work anymore. And I can't tell you the number of times I had people come into my store and like, well, at my old store, we used to do XYZ. And I would ask them, okay, cool, what store was it? Because I figured, like, I'll just talk to the owners myself because I have some networking, I could get a hold of them. And seriously, at least 80% of the time, they'd be like, well, they're not open anymore. But it's like, okay, well, then that's the reason they did stuff the way they did and they're not open. You know what I mean? I tell people, if you look around the industry, the stores that we claim are the best stores, they're not deep discounting. They're not running super low entry break even events. Like, they're paying for judge staff. Like, if their events aren't making money, they will either find some other type of event to run or they will run an different game altogether to make the money, right? And we're talking about like the Star Cities, the Card Kingdoms, like that level of stores. They don't do the things that everybody says, oh, well, you have to do this or you can't keep the doors open. No, that's not true. Like, and I'll tell you, if you go look at some of the stores in all places of like Phoenix, Arizona, they have probably more stores, game stores per capita than anywhere else in the US. And they have some amazing stores. And those stores, I know a couple of the owners. They're not deep discounting. They're not running bargain basement prices for events. But you know what? It also means you're going to be playing in a nicer store. It's going to be well lit. They're going to have staff on hand for everything, right? Like, you're getting a better experience for that. But I don't know if a lot of players are going to like that. If you got used to going to your store and you were playing these, like, I don't know, $10 booster draft events that were still giving prizes, and the store is getting hosed on running those events, especially after you count, having to keep an extra staff on duty to answer questions or input results and blah, blah, blah. Like, those stores have learned they don't need that. They don't have to do that anymore. So those things are probably going away. That's probably a thing of the past. Especially as rumor has it, you might be seeing the first booster price increase from Wizards in who knows how long. Now, it won't be a bunch. It'll probably be like 25 cents to 50 cents. But like, the first time booster prices increases in, I don't know, 15 years or something. So yeah, that's going to make them not want to do it even more. Jonathan nods violently. They absolutely happened at my closest store to me. The play space is completely removed. More retail now. Now with game unrelated merch. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me one bit. Like, that's the thing. And to some extent, I've always told players, I said, man, y'all are going to drive the industry to do this. And people thought it was crazy. I said, dude, I see stores literally around the world. I talk to retailers from everywhere. And I see the things that are trending. I see what's happening. I see what's working. And I said, y'all are going to keep doing it. And people would say, like, oh, well, we're in a small town. Or we can't get players if we don't do this. And those are the stores that aren't open, right? That can only happen so many times before the new store owners go, well, I saw what happened to that place. So I'm not going to do that thing. I'm going to do what these other people are doing. You know what I mean? So, like, you can only demand so much before it breaks. And then once it breaks, that starts to become the example. And I think that's what we're seeing. And the pandemic pushed a lot of people to that, with their stores. They had to get creative. They said, okay, if we're not going to do events, how are we going to make money? And then they realized, oh, well, if we focus on this, or we do this more on social media, or we fix our web store, or we start bundling things, or maybe we do online demos to teach people how to paint stuff, or, whatever. There's like 50 different things people figured out they can do that were good for business and more profitable and created more sales. Then honestly, and this is going to sound harsh, but in some stores, having ungrateful players just be mad all the time and constantly demanding more, but giving them less. I mean, do you know the number of people I've seen that go to retail stores and then would still complain and be like, well, I want to support my local stores, but I only want to do this. And it's like, okay, so you don't really want to support your store. You just want to take advantage of a deal whenever they have it available. Otherwise, you're going to be shopping elsewhere. And I know players that literally would shop elsewhere if a booster box was like $3 US difference. You know what I mean? Like literally, they'd be like, I'm not paying that, but I can get it cheaper here or whatever. Or, $5 cheaper to get it from Amazon or whatever it was, right? And it's like, dude, if you aren't coming up with that, then like you aren't trying to support your local store. But the minute the store had a sale and then they ran out or whatever, they'd be mad. Well, see, I was trying to support them. It's like, no, you were trying to take advantage of a deal. Like taking advantage of a deal and trying to support a business are two completely different things. You can try to use whatever words you want, but they're not the same thing. I used to, and I think I've told this story before, but even when I had my store, if I went and did something, an event, whatever, at somebody else's store, I would always buy something. And I would have players with me that would say like, well, why are you buying that when you can just get it at cost? I said, that's not the point. It's that I'm coming and using somebody else's space. They are not doing something else today to do the thing that I'm participating in their store. So I'm going to give them a few bucks for at least giving that time, staff, electricity, prize support, whatever, to this event. So they're encouraged to do it again. I said, it's not about the cost. It's about the fact that in most cases, we go to stores, or we go play in events that are cheaper than anything else we would do for that amount of time elsewhere. I like to use the movie example, because like if me and my significant other go to the movies, we're going to spend probably $40+ for a 2.5 hour movie. Maybe, if it's even 2.5 hours, right? But we can go to a Magic tournament for $20, in a lot of cases, $25 US, and literally play an event for all day. Like some of those events are 8 to 10 hours for that same $25. Like we're not going to get that level of entertainment anywhere. And not only that, a lot of those times it's like they have vendors there. Sometimes they have artists, like whatever. You can trade with all the other players. There's a bunch of side events with prizes. You can play Commander, blah, blah. Like it's literally a whole ass event all day for $25. Like, but people will still complain about it. Solvik says, I always think how odd it is that people don't value play space. We see it in a lot of wargaming table. Oh yeah, for sure. That's definitely a thing. Like I had somebody custom build mine, so we had some that were like waist height, so people could play standing at the tables or whatever. And literally had locals custom make them tops. I had a whole wall full of terrain, and there would still be people that I can't. Why are you charging $10 for the tournaments and blah blah? And I was like, there's prize kits and everything else and trophies that we ordered, and like you're gonna be upset and you're playing on custom tables, like, bruh, like come on. Right now, in regards to arena versus paper Magic is the best buy in my opinion. Well, here's the thing, like in theory, paper is always going to be the best buy because you at least have an asset that has a chance to appreciate, right? You're just never going to have that on arena. Like when you get a thing, every card has the same value, theoretically, right? At least all the rares, all the mythics, all the commons, all the incomes, right? They all effectively have the same value. So there's no appreciation, depreciation. Now, somewhere down the road, maybe you could sell your arena account, because you've collected X amount of cards, or you have all the cards from every set or whatever. And if somebody wants to just hop on and play, maybe your account's worth like $1,000 to them or something, right? That's probably a thing you could do. But beyond that, there's not really any assets there. So like that alone is going to make a big difference. You know what I mean? Like that's just all there is to it. Now I will tell you, and I've told people this before, so the 2730 y'all that are in chat right now, hands down, the two best investments I think in Magic are Commander releases, and not really like the individual, not like the one-off Commander decks, but when they do like the full sets of 4 or whatever, like full Commander sets. And as much as people don't want to hear it, secret layers. Those two things have the highest appreciated value average item or average card over anything else Wizards releases. Partly because secret layer almost always going to have some number of playable cards, and so far we know that they are not going to be reprinted, especially in that version, that art, whatever. So those are almost always a slam dunk. And then the Commander stuff is almost always exclusive to that year of Commander for at least 2 to 3 years that we've seen so far. And some of those still never get reprinted. We have stuff from the first couple of years of Commander that still aren't reprinted. And people still want those cards. Like there's Commander sets from I think I have one on the shelf from like 2017 or 2018 that's already, the set of 4 decks or 5 decks already going for like $700-800. You could have bought those initially for $150. Right? Like you're not going to find anything else that appreciates that value. Right? So I always tell people, like, if you want guaranteed results, those are the two products. Hands down. Magic's cheaper than clubbing? You ain't lying. Like, hell, you can go to some of these bars and club and one drink's going to cost you $15-20. Do I run an LGS? No, I do not run it. I used to. I ran an LGS for about 16 years. And now I just help other people with info in running their LGSs. Hey, Halifax, how's it going? Arena also just currently isn't as fun as it is in paper. I think that's a personal thing. You know, I think both Arena and paper can be fun and both can be stale at different times. I think it just depends on how you interact with the products. And that's why I think even like Alchemy, not Alchemy, like people are just going to have different experiences with it. I don't think it's necessarily that one's that much greater than the other outright. I think it's just how you engage with the products or the platform that I think is really going to change things for people. Because like there are people that have never played Magic that are just discovering Arena over the last year, right? So for them, Arena is going to be a blast. Right? It's a whole new discovery period. There's a bunch of things to figure out. You're getting to see all these tournaments and all these decks and this whole community around stuff and whatever, and meet all these people, like things that didn't exist in other games. So for them, Arena is just going to be perfect. You know, if you are older, nostalgic, you like playing formats that aren't even available on Arena or whatever, well, Arena is just going to feel like an hors d'oeuvre, like a tasting for you. You know what I mean? And you've got your filet mignon coming later. You know what I mean? Like, and you know it's there waiting for you. You just got to get to it, right? So that changes things too. Like, there's a lot of things that I think affect people's perspectives, and that's why even when I put my content up, I try not to be too judgmental of one format or another, or one way people play or not, or you know, digital versus paper or whatever, because everybody's experience is going to be different. Like, and you have to be somewhat sympathetic to that, of understanding everybody's got different reasons. Hell, some of it, and you know, we talk about costs, but imagine if you're a player in like South America, where a lot of their currencies have been largely devalued, right? So any type of increase or any extra thing you have to buy is literally like, to buy a box of Magic cards could be like more than a month's pay for some people down there. Like, and that's not even exaggerating. Like, that's a real thing. But conversely, I mean, if you buy everything's in euros, well, the Magic ain't that bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so even something on that level can affect a lot of people's opinions. You know, so there's so many things you have to take into account wherever you are in the world, right? That there's a lot of things you don't see and you don't deal with. And some of this I wouldn't even be all that privy to if I wasn't already exposed to the business end of everything and understand how a lot of it works. Right? There's just a lot of things that people don't know about. That's why when I see people like griping about a thing, or they're, you know, well, this should have happened, or Wizard should have done stuff this way or whatever, I'm kind of like, let's stop and think about all the things that are involved here though. You know? Yeah, and that's true. Sometimes people just like what they like. You know, that's totally true. Like, And I'm with you there too. And I tell people that all the time. Like, enjoy games how you want to enjoy them. As long as what you're doing is not directly harming somebody else or stopping someone else from enjoying the game their way, then who cares? You know what I mean? Like, it's weird to me when I see people's like, and we talked about this on our podcast like 2 weeks ago, I think. Maybe it was last week. But one of the topics was really like, why do people seem to care so much about how other people game? Like, I have seen people like one of the things that came up recently is that, most video games should have an easy mode. For the person who just wants to stroll around, they want to experience all the things, maybe they want to go on the collection hunt of whatever's in the game and collect all of the statues or whatever. Or I don't know, maybe they just want to get through and play the story mode and see all the story stuff and they don't have the time to grind through things. Then like have an easy mode for people. And then if you're a hardcore gamer and that's your hobby and you I don't know, maybe you make content or whatever, hard mode that bad boy and see what you can do. But there were people that literally were complaining about, oh, well, if they can't handle it, they shouldn't buy the game and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, if somebody sits at home and just clicks on easy mode, you would never know. Like, it literally affects you zero. Somebody is doing that right now in a game as we speak, and I would never know it. And it doesn't affect the stream one bit, right? So to be mad that somebody is putting a game in easy mode is just like weird. It genuinely is weird. Like, it doesn't affect anything. Not at all. But there are people that will get mad about that. And I feel the same way about Magic. Like, if you like Historic, great, go play Historic. Doesn't matter that I haven't played Historic in like 2 years. You go have all the fun you want with it. Or Modern or Pioneer or whatever. Enjoy it. There's people who hate Commander. Obviously, there's a bunch of people that love Commander. I always tell the people who hate it, I'm like, you're such an idiot to hate it. Because the fact that it exists, it makes cards you would never use worth money. So you have wasted cards in your collection that you can now sell or trade to vendors or players or whatever because they have value in another format. Like, that should make you happy. Right? Like, you should want them to be as happy and active as they want to be because that makes more money for you, or at least makes more of your collection more valuable. Right? Like, come on. Madden easy mode, I enjoy scoring 1,000. Some people, though, that's it, right? Like, sometimes it's just that. You just want to try something or you want to just experience a thing. Like, it's weird, man. We hold a lot of things in contempt as players for no reason at all. Even now, there's people going like, I hate alchemy, blah, blah. But like, which is just like, cool, you can still play standard. There's people that still play regular standard. There's nothing telling you have to buy the alchemy cards at all. Literally, zero. You can log on right now and play Magic exactly like you played it before as though alchemy did not exist. Now, a little different if you play Historic. That is a reasonable gripe because you don't have access to regular Historic. Though I do think they're going to change that and you're going to see that coming probably in the next couple updates. But that is at least a real gripe because that's saying like, hey, we do like playing Magic this way and now we can't play Magic this way. Right? So that totally understand. That's a reasonable argument. But as far as like the people complaining about like regular standard versus alchemy standard, it's like, then just go play the one you want to play. I don't think that affects much. So yeah, it's just one of those things. Just one of those things. But I think it's all makes for an interesting conversation. I think it's an interesting time in Magic. I think it's just, again, you just have to have some awareness when we're having discussions. Speaking of, I put up a couple videos recently. I started my why series, as I'm calling it, of just like why you don't win as much, why you can't sell your stuff for as much money, stuff like that. And then I also did like the 22 ways to fix Arena in 22 minutes, right? That was a thing. And those seem to get reasonably positive responses. So I'm curious to ask why that was a thing to y'all that are in chat, since y'all are obviously active and participating viewers. Why did those resonate with people? Because when I'm doing them, like, and some of those, I had some harsh realities of just like, and the why you can't make more money. It's like, cool, you don't know as much about the card market as you think you do. One of the things I told people in the, like, why you don't win as much, because, like, you're not as good as you think you are. Right? I was having, like, real conversations in those, and I didn't get nearly the backlash I thought I was going to get. Because I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to say these things, and some people aren't necessarily going to take kindly to them, but they probably need to be said. You know, for otherwise I wouldn't be making true content, right? Like these are things that need to be said if I'm going to do this subject. And I was prepared, and then it just never came. And that was so weird to me. I didn't think that was gonna. I thought it was gonna be the opposite. I thought there were gonna be people like super mad, you know, about like, oh well, who are you to tell me I'm not good or blah blah blah, you know, that type of stuff, or what makes you an expert or whatever. Which you know, I do have a background that says I'm somewhat an expert on a few of the things, but you know, it was something I really thought was gonna happen, and it never did. So I'm kind of curious why those resonated so much with y'all and were so positive, because I have some ideas for some other content in that line to produce, and I want to make sure I'm at least still hitting the points or not missing something that at least made those work. Jeff says Hades is a great example of a video game that can scale down so that my 10-year-old daughter can enjoy the story, or scale up so friends better me. Yeah, that's a good one. I watched a lot of people play Hades, and man, some people that play on the hard mode, it looks real hard. Like I wouldn't even attempt it at the higher levels. Marcus says, I'm not a fan of how alchemy affected historic brawl, but I don't hate the format. Yeah, that's fair. I'm not saying you have to hate the format, but I'm just saying, like, I get it if people are upset because they're not able to still play regular historic the way they like to play. And that's a case where a change is affecting the way you like to play. So that's a reasonable complaint. Country Fried says, enjoy hearing about all aspects of the game. If you have the educated insight, I'll listen. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Because one of the things I do try to do is at least show examples, or at least talk about specific things that people miss or whatever, and try to make that into a thing. Because I think, and I tried some different like strategy stuff where I'm like, hey, here's some tips on building a sideboard, right? These are some things you could look for. Like, here are some in-game strategy things or whatever. Like, I tried a few different things like that, and they just didn't resonate with people. For whatever reason, they just didn't hit, even though everybody says, oh, I want more strategy stuff, I want to get better, I want to, like, but they just don't watch it, right? I don't know why, they just don't. But when, like I said, when I decided to make the decision to do these other videos, those actually did hit okay. So it's very interesting to see how different it is. And maybe it's just the presentation of it. You know, maybe it's not like, I'm not outright telling you here's a strategic thing and you're having to take advice from somebody that's, I don't know, not a pro player or something. But the topic coming from a different angle, even though some of the information is the same, the expectation's different maybe. You know, I could see that being it. Country Fried, Alchemist Gambit is worth the 40 cents buy it. Fair enough. I like sneaking in an Alchemist Gambit. Hey, you know, I've seen a few people that have won some games because of Alchemist Gambit. So would not surprise me if you see that as a one of, even when we get back to playing some paper stuff, pretty regular. Would not surprise me at all. Let me see what time we got here. We got about 6 o'clock, 6:08 local time. So we could probably goof around a little bit still. This has been a good conversation, y'all. I'm glad I logged in today, because I was debating what I was going to do this evening, and I'm kind of glad we made this work. Rosalind, hey, how's it going? What's VOH? A few people have done that. I don't know what a VOH is. FYI is for your information. So I don't know what that statement's supposed to be. Lowercase VO, capital H, and then FYI. I have no idea what that means. It's probably some internet speak. I'm going to feel stupid whenever y'all tell me what it is. But yeah, I have no idea what that means. Like, not even a little bit. Realness is a rare commodity. Plenty of misinformation. In forums and stuff, people are tired of that. Hey, Liveness. Hey, Jim. You know how there's something to be said about that. Oh, wait. Hold on. Yeah, there's something to be said about that. I just realized I don't have a screen on here. That's not going to work. Let's do this. Let me pop this over. There we go. Yeah, there's something to be said about that, right? We have a few creators in the community that, unfortunately, do push negativity a lot, to the point that I have it on pretty good authority. A couple of them don't care about the betterment of the game or the community. I also know for a fact a couple of them have shared some information that is not true, even when they don't know if it's true or not, and just push it as a fact. And that really complicates things. So because some of it, like I said, I've been on the business end of stuff, knowing something isn't true. And it's just like, well, it is what it is. It's out there. When these people have 50,000, 60,000 subs and people are watching it or whatever, it's like nothing you can do. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. Curious, how did I get introduced to Magic? I got pulled into a heavy cutthroat game for Magic. Literally, I bought a deck, read through the rules, and then realized you need 2 decks to play. And that sucked because I was like, oh, well. And then, like, I don't know, maybe a week or 2 later, a friend of mine was like, oh, my brother taught me this game. And he's describing it. And I'm like, is it called Magic? And he's like, yeah, how'd you know? I'm like, oh, I have a deck at home. And then we just played Magic for the next, like, I don't know, probably 6 hours. So, like, that was my introduction to Magic. Like, literally, near the very beginning. Bill says, found your channel a couple of months ago. Love your content. Just hope to see more standard content. Give up my paper game. Here's the thing, Bill. Because I had somebody else ask this, how much more standard content I'm going to do. The problem is this. Like, I have a bunch of people who reach out to me privately in DMs or in Discord or whatever. And, like, well, I want to see you do more standard content, but show more games against, like, Epiphany or Mono White or whatever. And it's like, well, if that's what I'm running into, I'm not going to play 5 hours to get, 40 minutes worth of footage just to show against some different decks. Like, the format is what it is, right? So until there's a variety of other decks or something cool and new and interesting comes along, my question becomes, and nobody's been able to answer this. I said, what is it that you want from standard content? Because right now it's easy to go, hey, with Alchemy, everybody just wants to see all the Alchemy cards being used, building different decks, whatever. It's like a whole different thing, right? But at this point, it's like, what do you want from standard content? That's the biggest question. Like, I'm not opposed to doing regular standard content. The thing is just like, what do you want me to do with it at this point that's different or new than original, that's going to be fun or competitive against what exists right now? Losing is a big part of Magic. I like videos that touch on those subjects and help improve your game. It's funny you say that. One of my things is, why people tilt when they lose. That's one of those things I've actually considered doing just because, and I have some notes down of doing it. So, I mean, I might consider it in the next few days or so, but it's definitely been something I've thought about, of just like, here's some things you can do to maybe not be as frustrated, when you lose. Like, here's some ways of things you can do. And, we'll see. I don't know if it's something people would like or not. Rick, I do mostly penny specs. People said I was crazy buying 50 Soul Scars plus foil sets for $65. Sold my foil sets for $55 at regular copies for $7 to $8 on each one. Yeah, there's always those opportunities. And, you kind of have to be active as well, to find those once they peak. For me, like, I can, and I'll have that happen when I buy collections. If I happen to buy a collection from somebody and some of those cards are in there, I set them aside and I'll have them. But I don't necessarily go out of my way for them. For me, it's more just like, like I said, I pick up extra commander sets. I pick up some secret layers. I don't pick up enough of the secret layers. I probably should be picking up more of them. And like that stuff, it's already going to be guaranteed profits, so I just set it aside, and then I know it's just worth stuff later. I can sit it in a box and never have to look at it. Like, the other stuff I can sell, and I do sell some stuff through Cardsphere, fairly regularly, but that's something that's an active process to get my money out of. And it's one of those things I'm also aware that, like, if I get busy for any stretch of time, and I don't necessarily have time to, like, list stuff or mail stuff out or inventory things or whatever, like, I could miss a spike. Because sometimes some stuff spikes only for like 30 days or whatever, and you miss the peak, you can miss the point where people are looking to buy for a premium or, sell to vendors in bulk or whatever. Standard content is so hard, so many people playing, and meta gets solved so quickly now. I don't know if it's just that. It's more just like you're playing. The problem I guess it's more right now. The issue is that people want you as a creator, so me in this case, but it could be anybody, but I'm going to use myself as an example, want me to create them something that's different, unique, exciting, whatever, that also beats the top 3 decks that you're seeing literally every other game you play, if not 2/3 of the games you play, right? Sometimes it's just not going to be a thing. It's going to be a rehash of another deck we already played with some upgrades, right? Maybe just changing a card. Maybe I'm playing this deck that splashes black and plays in 4 duress or whatever, right? You're just not going to be doing anything that's going to blow the doors off. Like, and here's the problem. Like, people don't want to watch a 50-50 deck. They just don't, right? Like, and the reality is more decks are closer to being 50-50 decks than they are to being 80% decks. I mean, I know another content creator that literally will be like, this deck's in 90% win percentage or 100% win percent, and literally plays 1 or 2 games and that's it on the video. You know what I mean? Like, that's a thing. You know, people do that, and then people will go watch. But like, I'm just not going to do that. Like, it's just not my jam. I don't fault them for doing it. It's working for them. People go watch it. But like, I mean, you know, when I put up the video, like literally, and I've told people this before. I mean, you see losses in my videos or whatever. I show some losses, but I also shape my videos to where the first thing you see and the last thing you see is a win. Now in the middle could be anything, but that's the only real edit I do, other than like games that are just non-games where like one of us just doesn't draw our 3rd land or something, whatever. A lot of times I don't include those because there's nothing to learn from them. But generally speaking, I'll open with in and close with a win, because if somebody starts the video, if you lose in that first one, I already have history that shows they won't even watch the rest of the video, right? Or if they skip around, you at least want the last game to be a win, so at least leave the video happy, feeling like they got something through the end of it, right? Silly as that is, but like that gets better viewer ratings and view time when you structure them that way, because people don't want to see a 50-50 deck. That's what you're going to get, though, when you're talking about going in and people are like wanting you to brew something with like the dollhouse and this, that, and the other and whatever. It's like, those decks aren't going to have a good time against the Epiphany decks. You're just not, right? You're going to try to play dollhouse, blah, blah, whatever, against mono white that's trying to get you done in 5 turns. You know what I mean? Like, can we? Yeah, but the deck's also going to miss a large percentage of the time. So, okay, cool. Your other option, we can play it in the play queue. But then people get upset because they're like, well, I want to watch your video, but I want something to be available that I can play in ranked. So then now they're upset that you're not playing ranked games. You know what I mean? So when the format is the way it is, that's why I ask people, what is it that you want from a regular standard deck / video? Like, if you can answer that and I can provide it, then I'll gladly do it. But a lot of people don't have a good answer. Let's see. Let's see. And those specs include 60 Spire of Industry, 50 Indomitable Creativity, and 60 Statuary. Well, yeah, eventually you're just going to have space issues. Esper Control is already a thing, Country Fried. It's like, and again, control decks are fine, but unless they're proactive control decks, they don't make for good content for me. Because then you have games that every single game is like 15 to 25 minutes. So then maybe I'm getting like 3 of those in a video, 4 if I'm really lucky, and that's all you get to see. You know what I mean? So it's not all that exciting to do the slow defensive passive control decks. Standard isn't hard. Stop buying chase card and buy more 50-cent cards that look like potential dollar cards. That's more just talking about like investing. Hey Matt, live on YouTube? Yep, for a bit longer. While people were chasing those $25 foil fatal pushes, I was chasing inspiring sanctuary. So, well, yeah, there's always going to be those. There's always going to be those. But, you know, we're largely talking about arena for the most part. You have shown losses that are misplays, and you talk about what you did wrong, and that is very educational. Yes, you appreciate that, Bill, but I also see those videos are the ones that get more downvotes. They're also the videos that get the most complaints. They're also the videos that get people griping about, this idiot makes these mistakes. I don't even know why he's making videos, blah, blah, blah. You know, there's that. So it's like, you know, what do you want? You know, and I'm not saying this is you, as it's just at large whenever you're making videos. Like that's kind of the downside to it. And I tell people, like, and I'm open about it. I say, look, I'm going to make some mistakes, and literally I'm making different decks, putting them up every day. Some of these cards I'm playing with literally one time and one time only. So I'm not going to make the most big brain play with it because I'm not thinking on that level about the card. I'm literally just trying to get through the games in the video sometimes so I can make sure it's loaded up for the next day. You know, some of them I'm recording at 1 in the morning, you know, to make sure they get done. So yeah, it's tough. Oh, well, yeah, of course, Hal. Like, that's why I don't take it to heart. Like, again, that comes back to the other video I did telling people, like, the average person is not nearly as good as they think they are. You know, I watch all these people, like, even in chats, complaining about, pro player making this play, blah, 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 blah. And then a few turns later, they're like, oh, this guy's so good, or whatever. It's like, yeah, but you're not appreciating that thing that you said was a mistake or that they should have done different is what led to that outcome that you were super impressed by. But they saw effectively into the future 5 turns to know that if I set this up, I get the opportunity to do this other thing, right? And the other thing too is sometimes it just doesn't work out, and that's okay too. You know, we had that talk on stream the other night on Twitch, was that, you know, was making a play, even said out loud, like, okay, so here are our options, right? We can do this or this. I'm doing this with hopes of this happening. But then the opponent, I can't remember what they drew or whatever that disrupted the plans, and then things didn't work out. And people are like, that was a misplay or whatever. No, it wasn't a misplay. It was a calculated risk that just didn't work, right? It wasn't like I did this expecting this to be the outcome. It's like, you know, there's 3 scenarios. 2 of them are likely to be advantaged by this play. If the third one comes up, I'm probably going to struggle or lose. I gambled on it. Didn't work. That happens. You know, like that's just the way it is. Well, yeah, there's always going to be the people that are that way, and I don't worry about that too much. Like, you know, you just kind of let it go. Like I've literally been on the business side of the game industry my whole adult life practically. Like, you see those people in every aspect. Like, you can't let those people get to you, or you'll just be a miserable human. You'll be a miserable human because of other miserable humans, right? So you can't really worry about that. But yeah, it's interesting, you know. So I don't know, like I said, what people would even want from regular standard right now. Your time, effort you put in these videos is much appreciated, win or lose. You know, okay, so I'm gonna address that actually, Dean. I'm glad you brought that up because that reminded me. I made a post yesterday on Twitter, and then I shared some stuff in my Discord about I might, not decided yet, but I might actually let the streak die of, you know, videos every day. Partly because, like, for starters, real talk, I only have 5.5% of my subscribers that have clicked on the notification bell and hit all notifications. So I have viewers that say they like my stuff that still aren't getting my things, still aren't getting notified, still don't see when I have polls go out or questionnaires or whatever. They don't get any of that. Which means with 15,000 subscribers, my stuff might only be reaching 820 to 850 of my people, if my math is right. Right? So, like, that's already like a struggle. Like, the people who say they support aren't doing the things to be able to support. So that's already like the first problem. Right? The other issue is seeing for a while now, for the better part of 2 months, declining views on a lot of my gameplay video. And to put it in perspective, like, I had a very long stretch where, like, I would have stuff get 1,000 views in a few hours. Like, I have some things now that won't get 1,000 views in 3 days. You know, ones that are hitting 1,000 are taking 5 to 7 days. So, every once in a while, I'll have one that bucks the trend. But conversely, I see other people doing some of what I would call problematic content. You know, there's channels I've seen that have been recommended, because I also did a bunch of tests. I've reached out to other content creators. I've done some tests logging into YouTube and looking at different things with different accounts. Like, I need my community to be more active than anything else. and this isn't, me making demands, or this is just fact. Like, if people wish for things to continue the way they are with the type of content I do, I need people to be more active to encourage the recommendation system to share more and whatever. Because, and this is gonna sound hard, and I'm gonna put this up here, and this is very much gonna be like the type of statements I don't like, but because it comes off like I'm playing the race card, and I'm gonna apologize for that up front because that's not the goal. But we were discussing this even with other content creators that are white and whatever, and there's only thing we can figure is like, I'm not in the rotation of what enough players already view, so my stuff doesn't get recommended as highly. So the only way to buck that is some way to motivate my community to be more active. So there's no choice but for it to be seen and get brought up and get more views and more likes or whatever. That's why I'm encouraging people like, hey, leave a comment, like the video. Started putting in like a secret phrase or password that, hey, watch to this point in the video, respond with this in the comments, right? And then turning that into a game so I can give some prizes away or whatever, right? Doing what I can to increase that level of engagement so my stuff can continue to be seen or whatever. Because like literally there are channels that are a third of my size. Not even quite that, actually, a little less than a third. Some of them have no production value. Some of them are loading, they're just raw arena footage and getting recommended more and getting more views than my stuff was getting over the last 6 weeks. Right? Like no commentary, no music, no transitions, no overlays, no nothing. Literally just their thumbnail, an intro screen. Not even intro screen. It's just showing their deck when they log on. Some of them might have like their own like little 5-second intro thing, splash page or whatever, and that's it. So it's like I'm spending time literally at 1 a.m, like clipping things, putting in overlays, putting graphics on the screen, finding cards to do like card spotlights, and putting overlays and transitions in, and finding music and doing all this stuff. And it's like, I've got another person doing literally just raw arena footage, getting, in some cases, 3 to 5 times as many views. And it's just like, yo, I got to get my people motivated. Like, that's the only way we're going to be able to buck the trend. Because for whatever reason, and I talked to other creators, hell, I had it happen when I tested some different things on YouTube. I've had literally Portuguese streamers and YouTubers recommended to me before my own stuff would pop up on non-logged in, accounts of mine, right? Just putting in Arena, Magic the Gathering, whatever, clicking on some videos, seeing what comes up in the recommended side panels. And it's just like, yo, like, what do we got to do? So yeah, so all I'm saying is I got to get my people motivated. I got to get y'all getting the notifications on. I got to get y'all responding to things when I put stuff out. Watch a video for at least, like, even if you don't watch the whole thing, put it on for like 10 to 15 minutes. If you can get to 15 minutes, that would be miraculous. Like, if I could get my average view time up to close to 15 minutes, that would already do a bunch, right? Just put it on, 15-minute mark, you can turn it off. Click the like button, leave a comment, say video was awesome. Like, whatever. I don't know. Whatever you want to do. But that's why I've added all these things, to try and increase view time, to try to increase engagement in the comments, to just whatever, because, there's no other way. Jim Hopkins, I'm going to tell you, it's not a publicity issue. Like, literally, I went through 2020 in early 2021, where I was on 7 or 8 different podcasts. I was on 3 or 4 different web shows. I did a couple of videos with the professor. I did a video with Pleasant Kenobi. I was part of some announcements and stuff we did because I'm on the Commander Advisory Group now. I have my own stuff that I promote and send people to my content. I did commentary for a bunch of Channel Fireball stuff. I did commentary for one of the big Wizards events. Like, I've put myself out there. But one of the things, and this is, again, and this is where the race card thing comes in, and I am apologizing up front because I know people hate hearing this crap. But the reality is, and I asked on Twitter last night, like multiple people have said outright that almost none of the black content creators appear in their feeds on YouTube, period. Like, I had multiple people, even that subscribed to me and everything, in the Discord. They were trying different search terms and showing me their splash pages and stuff. And on some of them, I'm in like the 4th or 5th row of results. And above me are stuff they're showing from other people from, like, some of those videos are 3 years old. You know what I mean? Like, that's a literal thing that's happening. And I understand how it happens. I don't think that it's YouTube is outright racist, right? That's not what I'm saying. But the reality is, if the way recommendation systems work is if you watch, I'm just going to make up a channel. Don't hold this against anybody. But I'm just saying, like, if you watch Tulare Community College and then you go watch, I don't know, think of somebody small. Let's say like MTG Jeff, because he's like a mid-size, right? And then you go watch MTG Malone, right? Who's even smaller. All right, cool. Well, when somebody comes and watches the professor, they're going to more likely recommend MTG Jeff or Malone, right? Because other people that watch this also watch this. Or, you know, if people even just watch Jeff at his size, they're going to go like, oh, well, you probably would also like Malone because people thumbs up both these videos, right? A lot of people, for whatever reason, whether it's you don't relate to a black person, not like you, they don't have the same life experiences, whatever, all makes sense. They just don't gravitate toward that. The downside, though, and this part does get a little bit racist. So hang in there with me, because we talked about this on my podcast last year, is when all of that stuff happened with like George Floyd and the riots and blah, blah, blah. Like, there was a big push to try to find more black voices and more black content in people's communities and in their spaces, right? So we saw a huge boost in like listens and downloads on our podcast. I saw a boost of stuff on my content on YouTube, and people were wanting to like invite me to more things. And, you know, I was doing stuff with CGB and doing stuff with the professor and whatever. But we said like a month into our podcast, in about 2 months, you're going to see things fall off. And sure enough, almost like clockwork, just before that, started to trend downward. And then it continued downward and continued downward. And the further we get away from those events, you see fewer and fewer of those people appearing on things. And I'm sure that's part of what led to it. And hell, right now, I just took a picture earlier. I shared it on social media where I got 4 content creator awards this year. So it's not even like people don't like my content, but at the same time is I'm like, okay, if people aren't watching or not sharing or aren't commenting or doing all these things, but I'm winning the awards and doing whatever, like, are people just placating and saying like, well, because of all the recent events and like, maybe we should promote some of these people or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sort of what it feels like. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm just saying it feels that way. And that's what some of that comes down to. It's like, okay, well, maybe I just have to take a whole different approach, do something completely different, and just say like, hey, there's enough people in the space that people already watch. They watch regularly enough that the recommendation systems are recommending these other people more often. Hell, one of the people I talked to yesterday, I did a video with Strider Stone. And off camera, we were talking about stuff. And he said, even when he went and tested it, he was being recommended Russian and Portuguese stuff before he saw a single black person on his account, on his things. And he was scrolling down to find some people. You know, just like, what do you do with that? That's tough, man. It's tough. No matter what I do, I don't get notifications on YouTube from anyone at all. That's fair. All I'm saying is go turn it on for me if you can do me a favor there, Matt. Your production is great. I try, Charles. And that's the other thing why I have to question stuff. Because if you rewind a year ago and look at some of my content from then, my intros are different and worse. My lighting is worse. I've upgraded camera, lighting, sound, microphone, content. My overlays, I have like a custom blade thing now that I do things with, where like everything is better, but the results are not. I'm even promoting in more places than I was then, right? That's why I have to start like questioning all these things, because like you can't say that it's like, oh well, the content isn't good. And I'm comparing, even seeing what other people are doing, and I'm like, well, this person's not doing anything different, right? As a matter of fact, they're doing stuff that's probably worse and lazier. And I'm not going to call any of those people out because that's not the point. But it's just the fact of the matter. It's just like, wow. And then I've even talked to some of them and said, okay, well, how are you promoting your stuff? Because maybe I'm not doing something. And it turns out I'm doing what each of them is doing and then some. So it's just like, that's not it either. So it's just like, man, something's got to give. It sucks, but I mean, that's just, it's the reality, Let's say I only found your channel because SBMTG. Yeah, SBMTG, and I did something with him back in June, July, maybe July, around that time. So yeah, and Dev keeps telling me he wants to do another thing with me. Like, matter of fact, go bug Dev. Tell him to send me a message on Twitter. The dude's so bad about responding to stuff. Like, I have a ton of ideas of things the two of us can do because our communities and our content is very similar. It would be awesome to do more work with Dev. Seriously. I need to just have his cell phone number so I can just ping him instead of having to wait for him to check messages. Matt says, I actually double checked to see if you were having more content today, and that's why I was here. See, that sucks, but it's true. I've had multiple people do it. I've been in streams where people have said, hey, are you going to do a deck about XYZ? And I'm like, dude, we just did that like 3 days ago. And then I'll share them the link, and they're like, yeah, I definitely didn't see this video. Right? And some of them are long-term regulars. So I'm just like, man, I don't know what to do with that. Just got to keep grinding, man. I'd hate to see your content leave. Portugal is awesome. By the way, that is awesome. I would, that's a place I would like to travel. Especially since, what's her name? Philippa is from over there. And she was like, yeah, if you ever come out here, blah, blah. I was like, man, if we ever get past this COVID thing, I'd at least consider it. Let's see. You're the only black content creator I know of. Yeah, and that's what's sad, Marcus. There's several. Matter of fact, if you play Commander, the dudes over at One More Mana are really funny. Like, honestly, I think they're funny enough that they should have more subscribers than I have. But their, like, subscriber count, their view count, whatever, has fallen off. Like, literally fall. And they were in the same trajectory. They were getting a lot of views. They were getting a lot of comments. People were inviting them on shows. And then nothing now. Like, literally. And that's why I say, like, as much as I don't like playing the race card, when you look around and you see, like, this is happening to multiple people. So I can't even be like, okay, well, it's just me. Because if it's just a me thing, I can accept that, right? Because then let's figure out what it is and we can work on it. But when you add everything up and it's like, it's none of these things. So then what is it? Like, that's when it starts to suck. Because, like, I can accept that, like, because even as much as y'all appreciate my stuff, and I am so glad you do, I think there are still things I can improve on, for sure. So I'm not going to sit here and say, like, oh, my content's perfect. Why aren't people watching? Whatever. I'm still thinking about doing another lighting upgrade and some other things, right? I have some cool ideas for next year. Still lots of neat things I can do. But I also see what else is being successful. And I'm like, well, I know I'm better than that. And not to insult somebody else's work, because some of them are just starting and just figuring things out. But I'm like, I'm way past that phase. But that person is somehow still getting 4x, 5x my views with, in some cases, like, 2,000 subscribers. And I'm just like, man, something's not right. People have hypothesized that since the algorithm learns from human behavior, it picks up human biases as well. Oh, that's absolutely true, Tuberman. That's 100% true. That's basically what I was saying earlier. Hate this way it is and feel like it will start. Oh yeah, and I know there's still going to be my core audience or whatever is going to be there. So I'm not like, that's why I'm not like abandoning things outright. Like, I'm still going to be doing Magic content of some variety or whatever, but we'll see. I do watch those, but miss you. Then again, I'm fairly selective about the videos I end up watching. No, that's totally understandable. I don't expect anybody to watch every video. Like, when I'm putting out content every day, it doesn't even make sense to ask some of y'all to watch. I mean, some of y'all have your full-time job. You still got kids at home. You still got yard work to do. Hell, in some places, y'all are shoveling snow, which takes time. You just may not have that much time. Especially, do y'all realize somebody else said, well, maybe it's consistency of your content. I was like, bruh, I went and did the math. I have averaged 1.4 pieces of video content on YouTube since February 2020. Literally more content than every other Magic content creator. Probably more than most people on YouTube. So I'm like, it is not consistency of content. That is totally not the issue. Hey, James, didn't see you sneak in there. Rastafarius, how's it going? I'm watching less YouTube and Arena overall. Yeah, and that's the other thing, too. Part of it is understanding people's habits, right? We expected some drop off because, we're not in hard lockdown of the pandemic anymore. And while people were at home, they were, and YouTube's numbers spiked, Netflix numbers spiked, whatever. Like, we knew that was part of it. But I'm more comparing to, okay, where we are now, and then comparing across the board, creators of every size, every style of content, every skill level, and it just doesn't add up. That's the part I'm struggling. Now, admittedly, I have had some discussions with YouTube. I'm supposed to be contacted by them sometime again in the next 24 hours. So we'll see. We'll see. Patreon Cohen's Color of Magic MTG podcast playing. I think it's a great show. I think multiple people should go watch it. It's really good. Or listen to it. Not necessarily watch it. Arena, anything without Epiphany in my book. Fair enough. Fair enough. Then you would hate one of these decks, because I think the Dimir Rogue deck does have Epiphanies in it. Thinks I'm looking them up now. Fair enough. Left comments on SBMTG last 3 videos. You want me to do more content? Best I can do. Hey, that's already good enough. Just so he gets reminders like, hey, I should reach out to PowrDragn. Because I'll be honest, I actually really, of all the people I did content with, I enjoyed content with Dev the most because I think we were already of similar minds. So a lot of the stuff we talked about was back and forth, very easy conversation. It turns out we're both wrestling fans, so we talked off camera about it. We even at one point joked around doing a wrestling pod or show or YouTube channel where we put up something once a week maybe, and just having that for an hour. But I don't know, he hadn't gotten back to me yet, so I don't know what's up. I watch at 11 a.m. Eastern videos every day on my lunch break. That's perfect, because that's exactly... And you know what? It's funny you say that, Kyle. That's exactly why my videos go up at 8 a.m. Here's the other thing, too. I have actually done a bunch of stuff intentionally. When at the times I stream were to get the most viewers after prime time, in the U.S. Right? My videos go up at 8 a.m. Pacific time because it's just before lunchtime on the East Coast. Right? All of that has even been thought of. I've even gone through my numbers, looked at stuff like best times, whatever, and that's why I'm frustrated. I guess frustrated is the word when I see the lack of the result or how far down the results are by comparison when I'm doing all this extra work and saying these things should be working. So what gives? What's the discussion about right now? We're kind of all over the place at the moment right now. Bill? I can see the race thing being an issue. Andres Segarra seems to have a similar problem. He does content on a fairly popular subject, spirits, and he's following. Yeah, that happens. That happens. Thanks for one more mana mention. Yeah, one more mana guys are great. They really are. Their channel is great. If you're into Commander, you should be following them. Their channel is very good. I mentioned to my wife a couple of weeks ago, I haven't seen any videos from your channel pop up on my feed. Went to your channel, watch it. Exactly. That's what I'm saying, Corey. This is happening to so many people. So the first thing I'm telling everybody, and I'm be opening my videos with this for at least the next week, is go click the notification bell, select notify all or all notifications. That's the best thing. I literally have had somebody at YouTube tell me that yesterday, that is the best thing you can do. And right now, literally, like I said, I have 5.5% of my viewers that have done that. That means anytime I send something out, it's only guaranteed, or as close to guaranteed as you can be, to reach somewhere between 800 and 850 of my people out of 15,000. So the majority of my folks may not even be seeing the content I put up. That sucks. Seriously, sucks. So I've just been telling everybody, at least go click the bell, click all notifications. That'll solve some of the problem, or at least help to some extent. And then all you can do after that, like I said, is watch the videos, try to play them as far through as you can, because the extra play time will help. Leave a comment. I'm starting to leave the little mini game through the videos, so at least get to the point where, you find out what the secret password is or whatever of the day, And then once a week, I'm going to be picking a winner from people that had an appropriate response for that video. So, you know, at least can do something like that and help increase engagement. But man, it is rough when I think about all the different layers of stuff I'm putting into the content. Even, you know, taking the time to like find an interesting card to talk about on like the card spotlight and all that. And like, that's extra time. And admittedly, sometimes it's quick. It's only like 5 minutes. Other times it's like 15 or 20 minutes. But it's just like at the end of the week, I may have invested an extra 45 minutes to an hour into my content for something that people may not even see or aren't watching compared to other people, you know? Ring me at 2 a.m. We're going to talk. That's fair. I won't be ringing you at 2 a.m. Like, that shouldn't happen. Always thanks for everyone that shows support when they can. And it's totally true. And that's why I tell people, like, I am super, 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 like, just happy and thankful for the people I do have that, despite all these issues, are at least watching things. You know, you're active in the Discord. I see some of y'all that are retweeting stuff when I put it up. Like, that helps. Like, any of that level of stuff has been very, very helpful. But yeah, like, it's rough when you go back and look and be like, man, you know, I have this video up and, like, I'll be honest, like, yesterday's video, Slicing Humans, that's probably going to take more than a week to hit 1,000 views. Whereas previously I had stuff, like I said, I would be surprised if stuff wasn't 1,000 views before I went to sleep that day. Like, that was a rarity. Now, if I have a video hit 2,000 views, that's a rare thing when that was like the norm. You know, like, that's how different things are right now. When I'm watching, like I said, other people that have zero production quality, basically loading raw arena footage, getting, you know, 3,000, 5,000 views or whatever in a day or two. And it's like, ugh, frustrating. Oh, man. It's like, it's just one of those things, though. Like, I'm sure I'll get past it. I'm sure it'll be a thing. I'll figure it out. Like I said, I'm going to have some talks with them at YouTube. But, like, it's like, hey, if you're going to tell me all my numbers are fine and the same and similar and whatever, but then my view count's not right, like, something doesn't add up, right? Like, something isn't correct. No problem. I'm definitely not doing any prank. Here's the other thing, too. Real talk. I'm going to be doing a giveaway where I'm going to select multiple people. But the only way I can do it, because of how YouTube works, is going to be to send out a message to my subscribers. Well, if you don't have the bell notification on, there's a good chance you're not going to get that message when it goes out. So, if nothing else, I can at least tell people, hey, if you want to at least be part of a potential giveaway, then you probably want to make sure you have the bell notifications on. Because that's the easiest way right now. Because I tried doing giveaways elsewhere. It's like trying to do stuff in the comments and then select a person and blah. And it's just like, I think this way I'm going to do it where I'm rewarding the people that follow me. I'm rewarding the people that click the notification bell. I'm going to send out the message. People respond to the message appropriately. I select people from there, and then we can follow up with them coming to the Discord or whatever. Easy and clean, and I'm rewarding the people that are doing the best behaviors to help the channel. Versus, like, random person that just strolls through. You know what I mean? No, you know, Billy, though, like, I'm good with YouTube changing the algorithm. Like, I would rather they do that so people aren't trying to game this. Because think about it. Like, we're gamers, right? If we know what the algorithm is, we're just going to do the thing to the best possibility to just game the system, right? Then everybody is, and then it's meaningless. So, like, I'm totally good with them changing it. That part doesn't bother me. I think there's something going on that's not just flat out algorithmic. I don't know what it is, but looking at how things work and talking to different creators and looking at different size channels and analyzing the numbers at different periods of time and whatever, like, it's more than just a change at YouTube, because it's not affecting. Now this feels like a relationship. Kind of is, because it's not affecting everybody equally. That's the thing. Like, and literally, and that's why I said, like, it sounds like playing the race card. And that's why I apologize up front before we started all this, is that if you go look at some, like, we're talking about, like, One More Mana, since I already brought them up earlier. Like, they had the same thing, same trajectory, same thing as my podcast or whatever, where got more viewers, more people are reaching out, they were appearing on more shows, they're doing whatever, and then that's just fallen off entirely. And now they have videos that, you know, struggle to get to their 300 or 400 views, where they used to easily hit 1,200 views, 1,500 views, 2,000 views, right? So it's like one of those things where I'm saying, like, if it's consistent against the majority of the black content creators, something's going on. I don't know what it is, but something's going on, right? Now, I will say the biggest probably outlier would be I Hate Your Deck, who does have Joe Johnson on there, who's definitely prominent black guy. Also, like, in movies, and they've also had, like, Post Malone on the show and whatever. So, like, I don't know. Maybe that affects things one way or the other. You know, they've done some different things. They've had the professor on. So, like, those probably sway their numbers a bit, too. So, no way. Yeah, and I'm definitely going to keep going. I'm not going to stop with it. It's just a matter of what it is. Because here's a different piece of commentary that's kind of commentary itself. Wonder if your allergies changed once you started uploading the Color of Magic podcast. Oh, no. It was before that, Sean. Because we only did that for 4 weeks. 4 or 5 weeks. Like, and it was definitely hitting well before that, when we saw the slump. So yeah, definitely wasn't that. Like, we were affected well before that was a thing. Plus, we were still posting our regular daily YouTube stuff, and those were already not drawing the same number of views they were drawing before. But that's a good call out. Like where your mind's at on that. But yeah, it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing. And the only other thing I can consider, and this is weird, because for the first time, my non-gameplay videos were starting to draw roughly the same views as my gameplay videos. Now, that doesn't mean much. I mean, they're not, it's not like my non-gameplay stuff is like hitting the stratosphere. It's just doing equal or slightly better than my gameplay videos. So that becomes a different thing, because it's almost like, well, people don't want strategy from me, but they want regular commentary from me. Like, is that the pivot I need to be making? And maybe doing the gameplay videos once or twice a week, and then just doing some daily commentary thing otherwise on the other videos? Like, is that a thing? You know what I mean? Like, because it's really weird. Like, when you look at the numbers, I mean, they just are what they are. So you kind of have to question that. I mean, example, to like, what if Arena had this, right? Where I just did a bonus video later in the day where it did 500 views. Granted, that's like, 3 days old. But also, my Celestial Humans deck that I put out the day after has only done 600 views. And the Celestial Humans deck took more time to put together. You know what I mean? So it's just like, should I be doing that? And by the way, those numbers are atrocious for my channel. Just saying. But like, the set review of Alchemy did almost 900 views, right? Compared to my previous Mardu Vampires video that only did 810 views. And it was a full day ahead of the other one. So it's like, now, the quality fixes for Arena did 1,200 views. Videos on either side of it, the day before or the day after, haven't even crossed 1,000. And like I said, there's outliers where we had like the Sledge Enchantments deck that did 1,500 views, right? So sometimes things still slip through and still hit. But then I have a bunch of others that aren't even at 1,000, from a week ago. So it's a weird thing right now. It's a weird thing. I don't know what to do with all that. It's a big pile of information that I have to process for sure. I thought that, Billy, but that would have been, it's something that would have also hit previously if we were oversaturating, because the numbers had fallen off before I started testing a lot of this other content. Because even if we go further back, like, I had stretches where I didn't do but the one video a day, and still we're slowly seeing the decline happening. And then, you know, I did stuff where I do like the 10 uh budget upgrades to the free arena decks you get or whatever, right? And each of those doesn't get a lot of views, but that's stuff I just do for the community to be helpful or whatever. And I just put that stuff out there in the world because it's like good to do. So like those sucking up the numbers I get. But outside of those, yeah, I had, like I said, I had a stretch where it was mostly just the one video a day. No, I mean, the other thing too, and the other reality too, I also have to deal with is I don't get the freedom to be, wow, what's the word? Because I don't want, I'm not trying to call anybody else out or make them look bad. It's not as beneficial to me to play a character. I'll put it that way. So, yeah, by the way, like I've literally, like we talked about earlier, I've done 1.4 videos a day for the last almost 2 years. So there's plenty of content out there to measure and look at, compare. And that's been fairly consistent during that time, I will say. So like even when I was seeing peak numbers and everything else, like the average was still roughly the same. But there are some people that, you know, they're known for being characters, and there's several that are doing very well in the Magic spaces being characters. Hell, there was one person I watched, and the dude just drops like misogynistic comments and whatever, and like, you know, dude gets 60, 70, 80,000 subscribers. His videos do 30, 40,000 views. All right, you know, I'm not willing to do that. Like, it's just not who I am. It's not my personality. It's not what I want to promote. So, you know, if that puts me at a disadvantage, it's going to put me at a disadvantage. Dan did like half-hour deck techs. I love that. Very detailed analysis. But most content creators say people skip the deck techs and go straight to the gameplay. So it's actually funny because a lot of people do the opposite on mine. People actually watch the decks or just get the deck list and not watch the gameplay, which is amusing. But one of the things I've also learned, and this is a fun thing, that YouTube seems to be incentivizing actually longer form content, not shorter. So when you do longer content, you actually get paid better than you do whenever you do short form content. Not just because people are watching more and get to see an extra video. The average you make per 1,000 views is actually higher when you're closer to the hour mark than when you're under 20 minutes. That's an actual thing. I have lots of proof to show it. And I compared it to somebody yesterday, and they saw a lot of the same things. So that's something we've been seeing more of, which might be why you're seeing more of your favorite creators possibly making longer and longer videos, because the longer videos are getting higher, what they call CPM and RPM, which is what you get paid based on. So would not be surprised if that's a trend you're seeing more of. And if you were wondering why, that's probably why. I get that. Got to be real. Trying a character that you're not comfortable. Well, it's not even about trying a character you're not comfortable with, right? I could come on and I could be an over-the-top personality. I could be really loud. I could be super excitable the whole time. Like, but it's just not what I'm wanting to promote. And if that's what people want to see, that's unfortunate. I'll just have to find another way to attack the content. Because I'm totally okay with that. Like I said, it could just be a me thing, could be my presentation, could be a million things that maybe people have gotten away from. All I can speak about is from the numbers that I've seen, from the information I've gotten from other creators that happen to not be black. They're, you know, white, whatever. Like, so, oh yeah. The video links, totally different. Basically, all right, brace yourselves. Some quick business information on YouTube. Actually, for everything is kind of how this works. But basically, one of the biggest things they have is what they call CPM. Basically, it's clicks per mil, or basically how many views per 1,000 that you get paid based on that number. So a lot of videos in the game space, like obviously different categories get bigger stuff, right? If you're in like finance or whatever, your number's going to be higher because you'll have huge investment firms or whatever that will pay for ads that are going to be much more expensive because they're going to, you know, the average person's going to be worth more to them or whatever. But anyway, if you, and using myself as an example, if I do a 10-minute video, there's a good chance that video is going to get a CPM of something like $9, right? Plus or minus a couple bucks, but in that ballpark. If I do a video that's 30 to 40 minutes, probably going to get something in the like $12 to $15 range. If I do something that's 55 minutes to an hour, that video is going to see something like anywhere between $20 and $27. Like vastly different numbers. And this has been consistent. I think I've had one video, I think in the last 3 weeks that I went back recently and looked at that bucked that trend. So it's totally, totally different for sure. Like one of the things that people just don't know, but like I said, it might be why you're seeing people trying to go like, okay, well, let's do a 15-minute video and where they used to do like 8 or 10-minute videos, right? Because just those extra couple of minutes might make that video go from being a thing that makes them $20, maybe making them $50. You know, it doesn't sound like it, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, but totally does. Totally does. Which I don't know, because you get extra, you have people watching longer, maybe it gets recommended more. Like, I don't know about all that. I just know the actual CPM attached to each of those is vastly different. But I also know the video I did about like doing the update on the Acorns app, right? About like how it worked, blah, blah, whatever. Like that video has been my highest grossing video next to a video I did a year ago about the wireless adapter from Netgear that had the error, right? So non-Magic videos, those two videos are my two highest grossing videos. Just because the rates on them are higher and they just get a lot of views from just randoms. So, yeah. You don't have to create your ethos to create a narrative to draw people in for updates to a story. Fair. But yeah, so anyway, that's how stuff works on YouTube behind the scenes. So yeah, there's some stuff you probably didn't know that now you know. So yeah, if you're ever wondering why the content has changed for people, that's probably why. And I don't think it was ever properly announced or anything. I think it was just the way stuff works out for whatever reason. But it's something I slowly started to realize. So I'm like, well, why am I doing these like 40-minute videos? I might as well make them 55 minutes or as close to 55 minutes as I can and just get the extra money. How are you not complete spam at 1.5 videos a day? It must be unbelievable draining, especially when the format is super stale. I will say this. I'm a person who can just go 1,000 miles a minute for a very long time. With my upbringing and everything else, always been about the hustle. And I just operate that way. I don't even get all that tired. Like, it's a very weird thing. I'm an alien. I don't know. But it's only frustrating when you see how stuff is working and then there's no explanation to why it no longer works. Right? That's the problem I have. You know, that's the only time the work feels bad. Right? I don't even need it to be super successful in gangbusters. Just as long as like, okay, it's consistent, it's steady. Even if it's that slow 0.5%, 1% growth every month, whatever, like cool, whatever. I can live with that. I'm doing extra things. I'm taking the time to learn stuff. I'm researching things. I'm reaching out to people. I'm getting educated on stuff, like, and making things steadily better. But it's tough that when you look back and say, okay, I put all that work in. I understand all these things now. Like the stuff I know now compared to what I knew a year ago, night and day. Like enough now that I confidently can consult for people and I help them with their content, right? That's the level I'm at now versus where I was a year ago. And to see the results just not even be close to the same. It's like, man. And unfortunately, after everything up, talking to everybody, doing full write-ups, doing a bunch of research for like 2 months and whatever, the only thing I have to chalk it up to is just like, you know, and that sucks. Like, that's the thing that sucks the most. Because if it was really a content thing, a presentation thing, you know, whatever, like, that's all fixable stuff, right? Like, I can go back in the lab, I can revamp things, I can do whatever. But, like, the toughest part is knowing that even with the changes I'm probably about to make, it's still only going to have so big of an impact. Without getting some extra support from another couple of channels. Like, barring me going and doing some extra interviews with the professor, or doing some extra, like, I don't know, top 10 videos with Dev, or getting the rub from CGB, or whatever. Like, I am not going to get enough people that watch those channels to watch my stuff, or, for that matter, other black creators with smaller channels, to stick into the recommendation system enough that those connections get made to be recommended to other people. Like, that's just the way it is. Am I streaming on YouTube now? I've been streaming on YouTube off and on, but yeah, welcome a literal god. I'll still be on Twitch later, so don't worry about that. Our regular Twitch stream isn't for like 2 hours. But yeah, that's the toughest part, because believe me, I can accept, not being perfect and content needing to be better and all that other stuff, right? Like I get all of that. So none of that bothers me. The only bothersome thing is just like seeing where everything is at and having to have that realization of like, I kind of know what this is and it sucks, and it's something I can't change. So I just have to do everything else I can to make that not matter. Like, and that's a hard conversation to have with somebody, especially yourself. Maybe a different type of series. We tried that, Billy. A while back, I even tried doing like Fan Fridays where we featured stuff from fans. I tried doing strategy stuff where, like, we talked about that earlier, where I did like, hey, here's how you build a sideboard. Here's some strategy tactics or whatever. Like, those just don't hit. Like, and real talk. Like, we talked about this during the peak of like, the racial tensions or whatever. One of the issues a lot of people have is not, man, how do I word this and not sound like a racist ass? A lot of people have not grown up in a situation where they are comfortable taking information from a black person as the subject matter expert. Largely, and this spawns from a couple years ago, where I actually had a tweet that went out and I asked people, when did you have your first black teacher? And I literally, that blew up in the matter of hours. Like, literally, I literally had Chelsea Clinton, I had news reporters, I had papers from Ontario, like whatever, responding and asking questions and stuff. Right? Like, I mean, and a bunch of people were saying like never. That they didn't have any black, or the ones they did were like, oh, they had them in like an elective, like, I don't know, like PE or art or something. And that was a real, a bunch of them were like, man, I didn't have one until I got to college. Or, some people said like the number like 0 to 1 was overwhelmingly large. And that says a lot, right? Because you have, and this is just more of a societal comment more than anything, but it means you have a lot of people who have not grown up in a situation where they see an African-American person as a subject matter expert or a position of authority that they're comfortable taking advice from or responding to or whatever, right? It's just not a thing. And it was crazy how disparate the numbers were. And it's something I hadn't even considered. It was literally just a conversation I had with somebody, and I sort of just threw it out there into the ether. And matter of fact, it was the same day I played when they did that first Arena Open, and I played the Gruul deck, and I had posted the video and all that from last year. I had got done with that, and literally I went to Twitter, and like my mentions were just off the chart. And I was like, oh my God, what the hell happened? What did I do? And then I went and looked, and it was just like, it literally took me hours to respond to everybody. And enough that I was like trying to make charts and whatever, because then I got the idea of like, if I'm gonna have the information, I might as well track it. And it was just nuts, right? To see that was a thing. So I think on some level, that is a thing that is unfortunately just subconsciously there for people. Not that I'd ever even considered that was a thing until that happened. And then we just had the information that I could go like, wow. And this is from people like, I tried to only include the ones in the US because like school systems work different and grades aren't the same or whatever, country to country. But I did have a handful of people from outside the country that responded, and it was more common elsewhere, which kind of makes sense. But yeah, in the US, it was crazy. Or you had some people that are like, oh, I had somebody in like preschool or kindergarten, and then like none the rest of the way. Like, it was really crazy. One of the greatest minds I've ever learned from is Thomas Sowell. Not sure if anyone knows him, but he's a smart dude. I feel like I know the name, actually. Oh, that might be why. Yeah, he's a writer. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, it's just one of those weird things, right? And once we had that realization, I said, okay, well, does that play into this as well too? When it comes to somebody wanting to take strategy advice, am I not looked at as the same as somebody else? But when I'm giving social commentary, basically just non-strategy stuff about game or community things, that becomes more easily digestible for people. Like, might be a reality. I don't know. You know what I mean? But it's something I have to consider because of other information that I have. Might be completely unrelated, might not matter at all. But I'm saying it is one of those things I have to consider when I'm thinking about making a change to my content. I don't think that MTG is a den of bigotry disregarding minority creators. It's a nerd hobby, and nerds are generally very accepting. Oh, Geek Zone. How wrong you are. How wrong you are, my friend. Let me tell you a story. It's story time, y'all. It's story time. All right, we're going to rewind the clock here. This is probably 2001-ish. And this is back when I'd only owned a game store for maybe a year and a half, 2 years at this point. I'm going to the Gamma Trade Show, which is a big industry event where only game store owners, buyers, retailers, distributors are there, right? It's to show off new products. It's for people to trade ideas on retail practices. An industry event. I can tell you that when people interacted with each other at this event, it was very much like, hey, what's the name of your business? Hey, let me give you my business card. Oh, hey, we're in the same state. Let's trade some info, blah, blah, a lot of that, right? Networking. You would be amazed how often I got asked, who do you work for? Because black people just aren't in the game industry. They don't own game stores, especially not then. There's a few now. There's a handful, but there was almost none back then. And some of them were even surprised when I was like, oh, I own the Game Closet, blah, 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 blah. And that happened all weekend. So when people come along and say like, oh, the game industry doesn't have any racism, doesn't have any racial bias. Now, admittedly, I don't think these people were outright racist. Matter of fact, some of those people are professionals that I talk with on a regular basis now. So I don't think they themselves are racist. But I do think there is a lot of inherent subconscious bigotry that exists. And that was a thing that happened literally all weekend in a professional setting. So if those people are willing to do it, and whether they were doing it purposefully or not, the fact that they did it and they believed it enough to just say it, what do you think non-professionals feel or are saying? And that's real. Like, this isn't, like, I've told this story before, like, this is a real thing. No, I didn't. Like, because honestly, I'll be honest with you. Like, I knew the situation. Like, I'd been doing sports cards and collectibles or whatever since I was like 10, right? Like, I knew the lay of the land, even getting into the game stuff at like 15, 16, 17, right? Like, I knew, even when I took the opportunity, I knew what I was walking into. Sorry if you go through that. Oh yeah, hey, it's the way it is. It sucks. We shouldn't have to, but yeah. Sub your channel because I like your brews. They're unique. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's basically implied bias, right? And like I said, honestly, they're generally good people. And some of them I have had friendly conversations with over the last 20 years. So it's not even like we have a hateful relationship. It's not like they didn't respect me or whatever once we started talking or whatever. Just their mindset already even said like, oh, well, there's usually not black people that own businesses in the game industry. Like, obviously this guy works for someone, right? But even when I brought it up to a couple of them, they were just like, damn, I'm an ass. You know, like, I didn't even think about that. So, I mean, when people say that like the game industry just doesn't have that, it's like just not true. Like, I've literally had people walk into my business and be mad about something from one of my employees or a manager, and they're like, okay, well, I want to speak to the owner. And then I walk up and, you know, I'm the one they go get. And I'm like, yeah, what's the problem? They're like, well, I told him I want to speak to the owner. And I'm like, and? Like, you know, like, that happens. Like, that's real. And that's why when I'm having these types of conversations and I say I've looked into things, I've researched things, I compared things, I'm using all the tools that are available, you know, I've done all the research, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's this, you know, and that's why I try to tell people, I try not to play the race card because I've seen how bad things can be in the dark side when people and things really are racist. But there's sometimes you kind of go, maybe there's still some racial bias here, though, that's playing a part. And it sucks because I don't want that to be the thing, to be honest. Like, I don't want to play that card because, honestly, that's the toughest thing to change. Like, if it was literally just, well, you're putting out too much content. Okay, cool. I'll just start putting out stuff 4 times a week instead of 7 times a week. You know what I mean? Like, fixable. They don't like the cold open where you're just like talking to intro. You should just get right into the games. All right, cool. I can cut that out of the video and we can just start showing the decks and the games. All right. Those are all things that I could change. I could do. I can't change skin color, right? Like that just is what it is. Like that's, and that's why I tell people, like, when it sounds like I'm playing the race card, it's actually the opposite because I actually don't want it to be that. Like, I don't want to make a scene and make a story out of it, whatever. I'd rather that not be the thing because that's the hardest thing to deal with. Right? Honestly. Like, I don't want it to be that. I would rather it be I'd rather it just be, dude, your stuff sucks. And then great, I can get with people, start researching, talk with some people who do better content or whatever and get some tips or whatever, and then come out guns blazing a couple weeks down the road, right? That would be so much easier. All right, not a very nice story. Must have been tough, but isn't the matter of Magic in general. Skill and a bit of luck wins. Doesn't matter if you're thick. In theory, Geek Zone, the same way that like you should just be fine with anybody sitting down to play a board game with you. But I still see people, especially dudes, that will want to gatekeep out women. Or, if a woman's trying to make a strategic decision, we'll try to tell her what she should be doing. Right? There's these weird biases that exist. I've witnessed them for over 20 years in the game industry. Like, they are there. It's not about just people can tell you it's about the game, it's about community, all they want. But actions speak louder than words. And I know multiple people that have tons of stories that can tell. Hell, I have another fun story. I'm going to tell you this one because I've already told it on the podcast. But this happened, oh gosh, whenever the last Grand Prix San Antonio was. So like around 2010 maybe. But this dude comes up to me. Actually, he didn't even come up to me. I'm talking because I know it was run by Steve Port and his crew, and I've known Steve for years. And we're talking, and I keep noticing there's this dude staring at me from across the room, probably about like 30, 40 feet away, right? And he kind of keeps glancing over at me while I'm talking. And I'm like, and at that point, I'd done a little bit of stuff publicly, and I'd written for some magazines and websites. So I'm like, okay, maybe this dude just knows me, right? And he wants to come say hi or something. So at one point, I kind of tell Steve, let me go see what this dude's all about, right? After about like 15 minutes, I'm like, this dude obviously is waiting to talk to me. So I kind of walk over, ask the dude what's up or whatever. He's like, hey, man, do you mind if I talk to you for a second? I'm like, yeah, no big deal. Right? So he pulls me over, and then he gets real close. Like, that uncomfortable close, like your buddy's trying to, like, tell you something or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know this guy, literally. And he looks around all shifty, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? Right? And he says, and I swear to God, I'm not making this up. I can't even say it with a straight face because it's so absurd. He says, do you know where I could find some weed? And I'm like, dude. So then I decide I'm going to embarrass the guy. So I just get loud and like, dude, you mean to tell me that you found the one black dude in the vicinity and you asked me if I know where the weed is? I'm not even from San Antonio. Like, you'd have been better. And dude's like, man, no, it wasn't. I'm sorry. I was like, and I just kept on until the dude just walked off in embarrassment. But like, that happens. Like, that's real. That happened in a room with, at the time, probably had another 400 or 500 people in it. Like, that happens. That's why I tell people, like, believe what you want. It exists. Says don't dare get rid of the cold open. I get you. I think you have a point. Reminds me of how women talking about sports are viewed. Yeah, exactly. Which is weird because I always think, like, if you're a dude and you're into games or you're into sports or into whatever hobby and you find a woman who's interested, that should be like the golden goose. You shouldn't be trying to chase them off. You should be trying to invite them and all their friends to participate more. Because then it increases the odds that, assuming you're a straight male, like, you get a mate that is into the same stuff you're into. That seems awesome. Like, I don't understand, like, how dudes can treat women like crap, they're in their space, and then magically go out and try to like get a woman in a completely unrelated category and think they're going to be into them. I'm like, that logic is so backwards. Never understood that. Said you're smart, you're worth smoking, very professional, and it shows. To be honest, I wish I could tell people about you. I don't know anyone. That's fair. Hey, you know who you know. You're just honestly talking about spirit. Getting old. Yeah, that's true. Getting old is a real thing. No, I don't still own a game store. I used to, not anymore. Dudes in the bubble. Yeah, that's funny, Countryfied. Oh, people are definitely dumb. I always tell like a person is smart, people are dumb. That's generally the way I see it. But yeah, dude, like real stories. Like real I have tons of those, like endless stories of things like that have happened. Maybe it's real full of nerds. You're the only one that was looking cool. Oh, I definitely was not the coolest looking person in the room. Definitely not. Like, I know that definitely wasn't it. But yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, and I get it. Like a lot of things, if it doesn't happen to you, you just don't know it exists. You know, and I try to put myself in other positions when I'm talking about things that like women say that happen to them in game spaces or in game stores or whatever. Because like I saw some of it because I was a business owner. But I totally get that had I not been in that position around it 24/7, there's a lot of things I wouldn't have seen or wouldn't have known about. So when other people say like, is this that big of a problem or does that really happen? And it's like, dude, if the people who represent that group, whatever that group is, are telling you loudly and clearly, yes, this happens, and showing you examples that it happens, and you're just saying like, no, it doesn't. It's like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's consistent. Well, that's fair. That's fair. Dude, Holly, okay, this is way off topic, but I brought this up on our show last year. Like, I was talking to some different women at a gathering I was at, and I was surprised because it came up somehow. But multiples of them, several of them, had said they had been catcalled by the time they were 11. And I'm like, what creeper? Like, and that's a perfect example of like being a guy that had multiple women not told me this. I would never have known it was a thing. Mostly because I surround myself with reasonable people, or if I have friends that are idiot, I call them out for being idiots and they don't do idiot things anymore. But yeah, the fact that that's a thing, I was just like, whoa. I'm like, who are these creepers? Like, obviously they're out there because it's happening. And these are people who grew up in different places. So it's not even like they're from the same even part of the country. So it's a very common thing. But until then, I didn't know it was. So now I'm always like walking around thinking like, who is out here? Which of these creepers is out here like driving by some like, I don't know, 10 or 11-year girls on the way home and just like catcalling them? That's like the most absurd thing. Why? What the hell is wrong with people? But again, it's listening to the group that's being affected, and you have a sample size big enough to go like, okay, y'all are of different age groups, y'all are from different parts of the country, and like y'all are having the same, hell, even different racial backgrounds, having the same experience. So like, this is a thing that happens, right? You know what I mean? Like, you have to at some point say, okay, if enough people are saying this is a thing, or people you trust in that space are saying this is a thing, it might be a thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's not necessarily like, and it sucks because sometimes you're part of the offending group. In this case, I'm a dude, and there's some dudes out there doing some pretty gross things. And I have to accept that, like, man, I got to do extra work to make sure dudes aren't being awful dudes. But, you know, is what it is. I used to teach college English. The stuff some white students would say to me, expecting me to be more sympathetic, was a higher number. Oh, you have no doubt. Like I've, man, true story. I have been in a car where I've been pulled over, and I have had one of my white friends in the passenger seat immediately just like, F this guy, cops, blah, blah, whatever. I'm like, dude, just shut up. Like, it's just let me handle things. I can, like, you, like, I don't know what goes on in your car when a cop comes up. But no, you need to shut up right now. Like, this is not, like, that's real. I have had that happen. I almost lost a friend in a matter of like 30 seconds. For real. Like, that was about to be a problem. I was like, dude, These don't operate the same. And then we had a real talk, and he was like, dude, really? It's that big a deal? And I said, dude, look, if LeVar Burton, who arguably by American society, next to maybe Wayne Brady, is the most nice, passive black dude on the planet and beloved by people. If even he says he has been so scared of interaction with the police that he has taught a procedure, which, by the way, many black people know, he has had to taught this procedure to his son to make sure his son comes home if he gets pulled over. Like, that says a lot. Like, the nicest black dude you can think of in the country is like, no, this is a problem. I'm so worried. Here's what I had to do for my family. Like, come on now. Reminds you of a certain Chris Rock. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a Chris Rock skit. That probably happened. Like, it's so absurd. He probably turned that into a thing. But anyway, I know we got kind of off topic, but it was mostly started out about my content. So that's where all this originated from. That looking at a million things and then having the realization that for whatever reason, a lot of the black content creators are struggling, at least in the Magic space. I haven't taken the next step to look and talk to some of the ones doing video games and whatever yet. But at least on YouTube, a lot of them are struggling. A lot of their stuff's not being recommended. They're not getting views. They're not getting as many subscribers. Honestly, I can even say we're not even being invited on different projects anymore. I went through a very long stretch, like I said, where I was invited on and I took every opportunity, every podcast, every web show, every commentary gig, whatever. And those have largely fallen off. So it's not even just a YouTube algorithmic thing. It's everything around it as well. So again, not sitting here calling a bunch of people racist, whatever. Just for whatever reason, it's one of those things like we said on the show, that once the issues leave conscious state of consciousness, right? Like top of mind stuff, and it's not being talked about every day and it's not a thing, it quickly becomes a non-concern. The same way we had a couple of months where it's like, hey, let's stop the Asian violence. And we're seeing all these videos of, old Asian ladies being abused for no reason, people attacking them coming out of stores or whatever. Once those stops, you no longer saw the support and the rhetoric you saw, right? That's just how society operates, unfortunately. Like, it's just one of those things. Is CGB the biggest content creator in the MTG space? No, he's like the 5th or 6th biggest. There's like Tolarian Community College, Command Zone, a couple of randoms, and then like CGB. And of course, like the actual Magic account, I think, is in there somewhere. So like there's a few, but he's definitely, I wouldn't be surprised within the next like year and a half, 2 years, he'll probably be number 3. I think he'd be solidly number 3 behind the Professors, Tolarian Community College, and the Command Zone. And mostly just because it's just a big gap. He's only coming up on like 145,000, and I believe Tolarian Community College is like around 600K, and Command Zone's at like 500 and change. So they're just, those are the 2 largest ones. Arena game space, yeah, I think he's the largest arena account right now. There's some others that are pretty close, but yeah, I think he's the largest daily arena YouTuber for sure. Part of the challenge is that you can't challenge the implicit racist perception because people might see a blackface, don't click in the first place. Well, yeah, that's exactly it, and part of what I talked with Striderstone off camera, and maybe it was on camera actually yesterday, was one of the, Dev's at like 125 or something. Like Dev's pretty high up. But it's kind of the same thing. We come back to talking about things that women say are a problem in the game space, right? Like when a woman says it, guys go, nah, it's not that bad. Like you just go to a crappy store or whatever. But if another guy comes up and tells a guy, it's like, dude, man, don't you think like what you said to her was actually kind of effed up or whatever? It's like, you might be right. And then there's a real dialogue, right? Because for whatever reason, as humans, we take that advice from people from our personal groups, from our social groups, from people that are like us, more easily than we take it from the other group, whether they're the ones being attacked or not or whatever. So same thing here, right? Like, I could talk about stuff till I'm blue in the face, other than y'all, they're like my regular viewers or whatever. Like, y'all get it, whatever. But other people either don't want to hear it and you're like, he's just upset because the stuff's not performing well or whatever. Even though I have like a literal pile of evidence, right? Like, I mean, it's there, right? I mean, numbers are what they are. You can go look at stuff. A lot of it's public. Doesn't really matter. But if other creators are saying it that happen to also be in these other social groups or happen to also be white or whatever, then things change, right? Just the way it is. Kind of the same way that magically there's a spike when it's like, oh, well, Dev invited a bunch of people over. I did some stuff with the professor. Okay, a bunch of people come over. But then it's like, hey, are you going to do anything else with the professor? And then when you're not, it's like, oh, well, then I guess I don't really want to watch this dude's channel all that much. Which is fine. They just may not be into my stuff. It's cool. I get it. But it's very quick how fast the turnarounds can happen. Well, I think about it. The people who perpetuated racism in USA are the same people advocating for the end of it. Well, fair enough. I forgot about those channels. I'm subbed to them too. Fair enough. Can't stand. I don't even know who Quasar is. I don't think I've even that's literally the first time I've even seen that name. I don't know what type of content they do. There's some others that I'm not even going to say their name on chat because I don't want to give them any type of clout. But yeah, Quasar is not one. Might be on my list, but I have to not watch. But I don't know. I've never watched their stuff. Command Zone makes some great content. I never had fun watching Paper Magic until I watched. Yeah, and to be fair, Command Zone has an insane budget, right? They have to get so many partners and sponsors, and they have a whole production facility. They've got a full staff and editing team. They have multiple people that can record and direct stuff now. They are a for real production, so their stuff definitely is going to be better than a lot of people. See you later, Jeff. Yeah, podcast gets recorded tomorrow, so it's definitely going to be a lot of stuff related to this content on the podcast tomorrow for sure. Oh, MTG original decks. Yes. Mama says if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. And I'll leave it at that. The recommendation stuff is definitely true, though. YouTube stopped showing yours, HGG's, MTG Jeff's videos on the front page. See, that's interesting because I do sometimes see HGG and MTG Jeff. I do. Now, admittedly, you'll see the big stuff recommended first. But I do see those worked in pretty regular into mine. Think of getting into Modern, but I feel I need to invest in pricey cards, especially. Yeah, you do have to invest in pricey cards if you're going to play Modern. There's one or two cheaper decks, but generally you're going to have to fork out a little bit for your first deck regardless. So not just bothering. Well, the thing is, if you get stuff for Modern, it's at least still playable for a long time. And Modern's a popular format. So, if you're going to spend the money, go ahead. It's not going to be like it's poorly spent. The government media have been the biggest promoters, right? Well, that's fair. Hey, I love y'all too. Obviously, y'all found that amusing. Malone, Country Fried, Crokies, HEB, CGB, of course, those are my go-to channels. Yeah, Malone's kind of an over-the-top character, but has some good stuff on his channel. Crokies is another one. I think Crokies' content's good. It's just his personality. And I don't think there's anything wrong with Crokies. I will say that. I don't think there's anything wrong. I just think because of his gruffness around the edges, it's going to be hard for some people to handle his channel or not, right? He has a very playfully contentious relationship with his community and his chats or whatever, and that's going to rub some people the wrong way, right? And some people like that. Some people go to Dick's Last Resort. I don't understand that restaurant at all. I went one time and I was just like, no, I'm not coming back here. I had an awful time. I don't want to go to a place where people just treat me like crap, but people are into that, man. So I totally get why people do it. There's a whole literal restaurant chain based around it. I didn't get it at all. I was so confused, but people dig it. So I don't know. And same thing. CGB plays the anti-hero sort of thing, right? And that's part of his shtick on his channel, and people like it, right? That's part what his community wants. Have to turn down the volume. That's fair. Malone's pretty an animated dude. Not a bad guy, just animated, Have you ever thought about making a multiple video series? About what? Because the only one, I will tell you this, the only thing I've done that's different that really hit so far has been what I'm calling the why series of videos, where I dive into topics to like just give you real conversation. That's literally the only thing that's hit so far of all the other things I've tried. And we've done strategy stuff. Like I said, I did videos on samples on how to build sideboards. I've done some community related things. I've done fan video stuff. Like, those things just don't hit. At least not on my channel. You really watch Malone to laugh? And that's fine. Like, yeah, you should. Some banner is an acquired taste. Sure, definitely. And again, I think it's part of like, what's your persona? What is your character? What is your relationship with the community? Right? There's some of those things that make sense, right? For people to do or to brand themselves on or whatever. Totally get it. That would never work for me on some of those tactics because, one, I already had an existing life before I became a content creator. I have a lot of people that knew me in public spaces, right? I also do like commentary for people and whatever. So it's like, I couldn't be this like, I don't know, edgy, urban, whatever dude on my content and then be like funny and professional, when I'm going to do commentary. It would just be weird. So, it doesn't work for me. Malone is over the top and that's why you'd watch him. Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Like, and that's what I'm telling you. Like, I totally get there's different reasons to watch all types of content. And that's why I tell people, like, the biggest thing is understanding that never once is any of my arguments ever going to be about, I should get the views over this other person, right? YouTube literally gets billions of views a day. There are plenty to go around. Hell, Magic alone probably gets, I wouldn't be surprised if just the various Magic channels alone probably generate a couple million views a day. Right? At least. Even if you take the biggest channels together, they might be coming close to a single million. Like there are plenty to go around for everybody. Actually, they don't even come close to a million, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. They're pretty far away. So, yeah, there's plenty of views for everyone. And in the reality, if everybody is doing good content, then that increases the number of regular viewers, which means over time, you get more people that are being drawn into the greater sphere, which potentially is going to be more viewers for you down the road or for whatever project you're a part of or whatever, right? There's more people being engaged with the game. So you want more people to be doing well in your space. So I hope anything I ever say or do whatever, it doesn't ever come off like, oh, well, that person shouldn't be seeing success or whatever. Shoot, I want everybody to be seeing success. Like the exact opposite. Like, I just want to figure out why it seems like my stuff's being treated unfairly. That's all. But like, I could care less how much everybody else is getting as long as they're all doing well. Now, if I saw everybody losing views, then I'd be very concerned. But, okay, there's something going on here. Because that would mean there's something wrong with the game or there's a mass exodus of players or whatever, right? Then that becomes a concern. But when that's not the case, I'm like, okay, well, what gives? Something's not right. Let's figure it out. But yeah, I don't ever want, I mean, unless you're an awful person, maybe. But generally speaking, I don't ever want my success to come at the detriment of somebody else's success. You know what I mean? Like, if you're out here trying and you're researching and struggling and you're putting all the effort in and you're putting in your 20, 30 hours a week to make this content and all that, like, I want that to come to fruition for you. I really do. Genuinely. So, like, I don't ever want that to be a thing that, like, people try to pit my channel against somebody else like that. I don't ever want it to be like that. Like, because I got 15,000 views, that doesn't mean somebody else shouldn't get their, 10,000 or whatever. Like, great. Now, sometimes I might compare myself to just like other channels just of the similar size to see like, okay, if we're doing similar types of content, how does it hit for you? How does it hit for me? Seeing like differences in our communities and stuff. But I'm never looking at it for just like, oh, well, how come this person's having so much success or whatever? Like that just feels like an awful way to live as a person, The ultimate ratio, I think, unfortunately, his schedule changed. So he wasn't streaming so much late at night. He moved to an earlier time slot. And then he got into some other games. And then I think life just kind of took over a little bit, unfortunately. So that's probably why, if you're on later, it's probably why you haven't seen him. You're so chill, and that's why I enjoy your content. I try to be. I try to be most of the time. Almost where I got. I do get recommendations for your channel for that router fixing video you made years ago. Yeah, exactly. That thing gets recommended to everybody. And like, it's honestly my highest grossing video by a long shot. It's not even close. No, it actually, because I asked them about that, like, that's not really confusing the algorithm. Because again, I would almost agree with that. If one, I had already been told, like, it doesn't seem to be affecting anything. But two, when I'm seeing spikes and increases, whatever, even when that was even more successful, it didn't affect anything else. So even as the, like, because in theory, if it was confusing things, as the views have slowed down on that video, then it should be less confusing to the algorithm. But however, even when it was drawing a lot of views, it still didn't affect the rest of the channel, and the rest of the channel was still growing. So, I don't know if he still does. I haven't seen him in the last couple of months. So he might have had just like a life change to where he's not streaming anymore. I feel like there's no channels that show the intricacies of decks and thoughts of the plays. That no channel that shows intricacies of decks or thoughts of plays. What do you, can you give me an example, Billy, of that? Because I'm not sure, like, I sort of feel like that's kind of what I'm doing. So I'm not sure what, like, what would be different. Yeah, I'm not really sure how to process that. Yeah, I'm just making sure I didn't miss anybody's comment in there. All right, cool. Well, let's see what we got here. I still have probably about an hour, maybe about 45 minutes before I got to wrap this up because I want to grab a bite to eat before I get on Twitch later. Yeah, so different group of people here this time, obviously, from what we had on a couple hours ago. God, I didn't realize we've been streaming for a bit, actually, huh? Yeah, we've been live for over 2 hours, almost 2.5 hours. Bounce out by breaking a few routers to see if the algorithm handles it. You know, the thing is, I know I could do well with other content, but I enjoy doing the game content more. And I have the other channel to do like the food reviews and like product reviews and other stuff there. So, and that's been fun anyway, just to do those periodically. PVDDR did a special with CGB analyzing his play in a tournament and pointing out his mistakes. That one was awesome. Yeah, but here's the thing. I know a lot of people that have tried strategy content. A lot of people. And general consensus is doesn't work. PV gets it to work, I believe, well, one, because of his pedigree. Right? Literally one of the best players in the history of Magic. Like, anybody who argues that is a moron. And he also has done it for a while. Like, if you look, he has a lot of videos that just don't hit the way some others do. And you're talking about a guy who has a big following, has all the pro players behind him, has the hardware to prove his credentials, and even he struggles to get some of his strategy content to hit. And if anybody should be getting viewers for strategy content, like, his should be a slam dunk. You know what I mean? Like, he literally, every time PV puts up a video, that should be like 50 to 100,000 views minimum. If you listen to all the people that say, "Oh, I want more strategy content. I want blah blah whatever," right? Like, he should be the one getting at bare minimum if anybody does. But he just doesn't. You know, and I can't even tell you why. Well, that's not true. I have a belief that people who need the strategy, which are basically two categories, either people that are starting out that want to just learn more about the game, or people that are grinders, whether that's to just try to grind the ladder, trying to grind PTQs, qualify for the Pro Tour, or whatever, right? The issue should be, the issues I've discovered is that the first group doesn't even know what to search for, right? They're struggling, but they don't know what particular they're struggling with, so they don't even know what to search for SEO-wise or whatever. So they can't even find the thing they need from a strategy perspective. The other group is full of a lot of people that are tryhards that already think they know more than they know, which again comes back to the average player is not as good as I think they are. So they don't go seeking out the content, even though they're the ones that need it the most, realistically. The thing about his voice being hard to listen to me, doesn't matter. And I'll tell you why. Because if I'm really trying to get better at something, and I've done this with multiple things. When I was studying stage magic, when I was learning disc golf, when I was whatever, like, if I'm finding one of the best people at the thing to watch or listen to, then I find a way to get through it, right? If you're an athlete and you have a coach that has a thick foreign accent or whatever, you find a way to deal with it because they're making you better at the thing you're trying to be better at. I get it. He's got an accent, bothers some people, whatever. But if I'm trying to qualify for the Pro Tour and I'm trying to like hone my game, and he's one of the only pros doing deep, in-depth strategy study, then I'm going straight to the source and I'm going to consume it. I'll find a way to get through it, you know? He's good. I've played him in Gabe Nassif. I actually have not had the pleasure of playing either one of them, even though we've been in some of the same events at the same time. You ever think about doing some Commander gameplay, paper or even spell table? Yeah, I did a couple, and I had people that griped because, well, they couldn't. It was mostly like, basically, it wasn't Command Zone. You know, it's basically what it was, right? Like, it's not Command Zone. If you're not going to be at least that good, or you're not going to be big enough to pay an editor. Like, now, Alias V has put out a series of Commander videos that were very good. Granted, she's had an editor and stuff, but very good. But I think if you're not doing it with some level of editing or whatever, people just don't enjoy it as much. I mean, they want to see like cards highlighted. They want to see each person's playfield better. Everyone's got to have a better camera, blah, 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 which is fine. I get it. Just the bar on what people expect for Commander content has been significantly raised. You know, same thing like the Spike Feeders have a good channel. If you haven't watched their stuff, like, and he uses like way upper end cameras, way upper end microphones. Like, that's just what it is for Commander content, right? So even though it's fun, like, people have a high expectation for it. And I'm just not going to, like, without an editor, I can't put that type of time into making Commander content look good, honestly. And not look good enough that the average person just scrolling around looking for Commander content would enjoy it. That's kind of the downside there. A mathematics breakdown of MTG might be interesting, but would probably fall same. Yeah, the reality is, though, if anybody wants to know anything about Magic-wise, I would literally just be taking clips from stuff from Frank Karsten's articles. I mean, like, literally, anybody wants to know about, just look up whatever it is you want to know mathematically about Magic and just put Frank Karsten after it in your search terms in Google with a K. Like, that's what you need to do. That's literally all he's known for, is doing mathematically based things and posting them online. Like, that's literally what I would do. Like, if I did anything, I would be starting at a base from his articles, probably, or his math, because, like, he's already done the footwork. It's already been proven. So I would basically be doing 15-minute videos of, hey, here's this concept. Frank Karsten says the math works out like this. We've been using this for years. It's proven out to work. And then we would talk about that, and that would be the video. And then the next video would be this concept. Frank Karsten says the math works out like this. It's been proven out before in these scenarios. Here's what you should be doing. And that's the video. That would literally just be like my like script for every video. Like, there's unfortunately not much to research on that end. Like, and he's broken down all types of stuff, like the difference of playing 60, 61, 62. If you want to know, like, odds of opening certain things in packs or blah, blah, like, he's literally done all that. Like, there's literally, like, if there's ever a Mathematica thing people are wondering about, they will literally tag him on Twitter and be like, hey, is this something you're working on this week? And they will anticipate a response from him or not. Like, he's just a math whiz. And he puts it into charts and everything else, and it's great. But yeah, I think you're right. A lot of people wouldn't necessarily search it out because it falls under strategy content. But yeah, if I did it, I would just be repurposing his information, I think, honestly. I mean, works for trashy news sites. I mean, maybe. I don't know. And the thing is, I would rather use it where it makes sense. Like if I happen to be talking about a concept and at some point math is just going to come into play and I know he's already done a thing, then yeah, then I would do it. But I wouldn't want to do a whole series just like rehashing somebody's work because that just feels lazy. And honestly, it doesn't feel fun, to be honest. I think that would be my biggest issue. It just doesn't sound like, even in my head thinking about it, doesn't sound fun to do. So I probably would avoid it. But yeah, it's kind of like I said, Patrick. The thing is, I looking at somebody. Matter of fact, let me go do a quick search on PV's channel. Let me click over here, just to kind of give a rundown of just like his recent videos. And he only even has 37,000 subscribers. Like that seems like a travesty. Like the dude is literally one of the winningest players in Magic. Like how does he not have more subscribers? Hell, if nothing else, every person who's ever aspired or played on the Pro Tour or is interested into it, like alone should be watching him. But I mean, think about the fact that his recent videos, and this is over the last, we'll look over the last month, are 9K, 8K, 11, 3, 3, 3, 4.5, 6, 10, 9. Right? Like, there's a bunch of Magic creators, even equal or smaller size of them, getting similar views doing other stuff that's non-strategy. And that tells you why a lot of the small channels aren't going to even compete on strategy content. Like, I mean, even when he's doing like set reviews and everything else to help people with draft or whatever, like some of those even only got 3,000 views. You know what I mean? Like that stuff. And he even has some that are just deck techs that are doing worse than what some other people. He has a White Weenie one that's his most recent one from 2 weeks ago. And in 2 weeks, it's only done 9,000 views. Whereas almost everybody that does arena content that's done mono white, if they have at least 30,000 followers, probably easily hit the 9,000 views. Unless they're me, apparently, because, you know, whatever. I'm terrible now all of a sudden. But you get what I'm saying. It's like it's pretty tough. Ryan, literally, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told other people that ask. I absolutely would love to. I literally have a whole string of ideas that I planned out. I sent him a bunch of messages on Twitter. He says he wants to do more content. When he streams, apparently other people tell me, reach out and say, hey, Dev says he wants to do more stuff with you. And my response is always, great. Go on every one of his recent videos and post, hey, you should contact PowrDragn to do more content with him. So he actually does it because he is the worst person on the planet about responding to messages. At one point, I even said, dude, just send me your cell phone number so I can just text you and we don't have to worry about you checking messages. I can just message you directly. Like, but yeah, like I actually enjoy working with Dev, and he apparently really enjoys working with me. And I think he's very genuine, honestly. I don't think he's just saying that. But he's so bad about sending messages or responding to messages that that's the only reason we haven't done content recently. I even want to do one where we look back at like the cards we talked about that possibly would become something or whatever, or like our future specs or whatever we called them. I can't remember what we called them in that video. And then just see like how many we hit on and missed on. Because I think that would be a funny video to do, right? Just to be like, this one I got it, or this one I sucked on. It didn't do anything, you know. But like, even that would be fun. But it's just like, I have ideas. I just got to get him to say yes to it. Is he a stoner? I have no idea, actually. I don't know if he smokes or not. Like, such a great conversation. Gonna bounce right. See you later, Jonathan. Thank you for stopping by. But yeah, so if Dev wants to do content, absolutely, I'm down. Matter of fact, I may even just reach out to some other people I've done content with in the past and just be like, hey, if you're up for doing another round of a thing, let's chat. Let's do a thing. Because, you know, I'm up for it at this point. Like, I actually enjoy doing collaborative content. But the biggest thing to me when I'm doing collaboration... Oh, yeah, I know a lot. Believe me, I live up in the state of Washington. Like, plenty of people up here do. Like... The one thing I tell people about collaborations is, and this is for anything you do, whether you're doing Magic content or not, just a word of advice. Make sure you understand what you're bringing to the table. And the reason I say that is, like, think about when I go to do something with Covert Go Blue or with Tolarian Community College, or even with Dev, right? Because Dev's got 120,000 subscribers or whatever, right? I stand to make a bigger rub in wrestling terms, get the benefit of their community versus them getting the benefit of my community. Right? They'll get some, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be the same impact. So it's what do I think I can bring to a conversation or some content or whatever that elevates the topic or that they're talking about. You know what I mean? And I see a lot of people reach out to me like, hey, we should collab sometime. And I'm like, okay, cool. What do you want to do? And they're like, anything. And I'm like, well, you got to tell me like what your expertise is or what your background is or what you're good at or whatever. And then maybe we could work on something. And then a bunch of people don't respond back. I'm just like, well, I can't do anything with that. You know what I mean? Like every single time I've reached out to somebody, like when I was working with the professor, I was like, cool. We came up with 6 or 7 ideas and said, okay, let's record these and let's talk about this. Right. CGB, I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to come on and do the deck doctor things to take some work off his plate so he doesn't have to do it all the time. And I already do a lot of deck doctoring stuff anyway, so it's right in my wheelhouse. Boom, right? Understand what you're bringing to the table, I think is the biggest thing. It's not just tokenness, right? It's understanding, like, there's going to be benefits gained, but, like, you have to make up for the lack of benefit you're bringing. Right, that somebody should walk away, and fortunately that's worked out. That like people have left Dev's videos and TCGPlayer or Player and Community College videos and whatever, and being able to say like, oh, that was a good conversation, or oh man, it was cool. I never heard this perspective from this guy. Oh, I didn't know about that thing or whatever. Right. So when we're having a conversation, I can bring stuff from a business background in the industry. I can talk about stuff that happens at Wizards. I can talk about stuff that happens, with the distribution chain or whatever that other people may not know. So they basically get a subject matter expert to come talk about a thing. And that's pretty cool for them, right? So that's actually one of those things. So anytime you're going to work with somebody, whatever it is, always reach out and say like, hey, here's an idea I have, or here's something I'm working on. Like, hey, have you considered doing this type of video, podcast, whatever? Hey, if you're interested, I kind of have some expertise in this thing. It'd be cool to come on and talk about it. Or to work on this, or I have this idea, or whatever, right? And that's a good way to get stuff started, other than just, hey, we should collab. And I was like, okay, cool. On what? You got to be ready to talk about it, for sure. Would you be in one of those office hour skits with the professor? Sure. I mean, I hadn't thought about it till you just asked, but I'm not like opposed to it or anything. I'm totally down. I mean, the last time we just kind of sat in the big chairs and just had a back and forth, podcast type conversation. But yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. Seems reasonable. Do a weekly challenge series of a different creator. Pick the hot chicks first. Well, one, that would already be dumb. I'm not going to do that and just like pick somebody just because they look good. That's meh. I'm not trying to placate that crowd. But yeah, like, I don't know, challenge series, I've seen other people do it. I want to say, who was it? It was Malone and somebody a while back tried a couple of those. And they just didn't hit. And I would assume the same thing for mine would. Now, I think when you're doing something big, where you have like CGB and you've got like, what's his name? Jim Davis or whatever, and they have time to make like a couple of videos, and you have the social media back and forth, and then both of their communities get involved and whatever. Okay, yeah, then it's kind of fun because you're building up this like one-off best of 3 series type thing or whatever, and it becomes a spectacle. But I think just as a video of like, hey, I'm gonna have so and so on my channel, and we're gonna play against each other, and it's like, okay, like, cause here's my question, Closet Smurf. Here's what really I would ask you. And this isn't like to just like needle you or whatever. But what is your expected outcome from that type of video? Because I think that's the thing. When people recommend stuff, you also have to think about, okay, but what's the expected outcome? Right? Let's say, and this is just like scenario bouncing, but let's say me and, I don't know, CGB do a challenge series, right? He's my first opponent. And let's say I win 2 in a row real quick against CGB. Then what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really gain much. Like, okay, I beat CGB. That's cool, but like, you know, and is that any better for him because he lost to somebody with like literally a tenth of his subscriber count? Like, you know what I mean? Like, unless we're doing it for charity or there's something else, like if something around it, like what's the benefit there? Uh, actually, Merchant did that. Some of the last videos Merchant did before he stopped doing Magic content were that, and he actually quit doing them because they didn't draw very well. He did basically like 8-person tournaments, and I think he did. I think they were all standard. I think he did Brawl one time. I think. And then he did some best of ones or whatever, I think, another time. But like, you'd have to go back through his content. But I know he did some before, and they didn't draw great for the amount of work he had to put in. And also coordinating all the people is tough because everybody's got different schedules. Some people aren't even in the same countries, much less the same time zones. So that becomes a problem. And like, so yeah, that's kind of the tough part there. The thing I would ask though, Closet, is like, how is that significantly better than the regular content you're going to see on either one of the people's channel that both people know work? You know what I mean? But that I don't. But that's the thing. I don't. I mean, I don't think we would be proving that. Like, I could play my own 2 Mardu decks, and if one gets one win more than the other one, okay, do we say the first one's better than the second? Like, not really. It's just a matter, like, I already think too many people try to put like too much into win-loss when they watch a video, right? I tell people all the time, like, win-loss record should be like the third or fourth, maybe even fifth thing you care about when you watch a video. It should be, do you find this concept interesting? Like, do you like the colors? Do you like the deck style? Whatever. Cool. Do you like the presenter? Blah, 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 whatever. All right. Okay, when you're watching the games, what type of misplays or mistakes did the person make? Did that affect the outcomes or not? Were there problematic cards that the person had to deal with or whatever? Okay, cool. Then it's okay, what decks did they win against or lose against? Not total record, just individual decks. Because then you start looking at it and saying, okay, well, the decks they lost to, I faced those a lot. So can I make some changes that would make this better in those matchups or not? Or, okay, I just have to write off those losses, but the deck I lose to isn't played that often, so maybe I go ahead and play this regardless of what the record was in the video. Or, did the person get paired up against just really good opponents that never gave them any outs or never made any mistakes? Or did they get paired up with some doofus opponents? Because I've had that happen where my deck performed very well, and at the end of the video, I've had to tell people, like, and we went, you know, whatever, X and 1, but a couple of these we shouldn't have won. We got really lucky, or our opponent made bad plays, or blah, blah, you know. So there's a lot of factors. But again, average person just goes, win-loss, I want to play this. And then their results maybe don't match what's in the video. I think it'd only be fun if they were themed with terms that both sides had agreed on, non-meta decks. Yeah, and I think that's the problem there, Billy. Like, I think at some point you have to start putting so many parameters on it that it almost becomes like, here's the thing, really. It's that's really going to work best if both people already have a big audience. If both people already have a big audience and they're already both drawing numbers well, then is there something else better they can do than just be doing some type of challenge video? Like, probably. Because they're going to get, unless you find a way to make the challenge video benefit some group, some giveaway, some sponsor, some charity, whatever, like, then I'm more for it. But to just do it, it's like, I just can't be talked enough into the benefit of it. Like, I would rather see those, like, even two bigger creators I like, instead of seeing them play, I would rather see them, like, unless there may be something on the line. Maybe they're playing for, like, I don't know, $1,000 challenge that one of them has to pay the other one or something, like, I don't know. No. The thing is, viewers are going to be who they are. I'm not going to change their habits. I'm just saying I know it's a thing. But the thing is, what I'm saying is, like, with those two, and again, let's just use, in the case of Jim Davis and CGB, since that already happened, I would have much rather seen them do, like, a collaborative deck build on a concept and talk about why they do or don't like certain cards, versus the other person liking or not certain cards, and maybe see what the deck list came out to. I would have rather seen them do something talking about like maybe the two of them together would have been talking about, say, timing is different, but let's say, Alchemy was coming out. I'm talking about like how that's likely to affect creators and their content or whatever. Like that would be a serious, fun conversation with two high level, highly followed creators, right? That would be kind of fun, right? That type of stuff, which is so unique and different that you can get both those minds in the same room, that feels to me like it has more benefit and more interest to people than just like, let's watch them battle each other. Like, like I, even now when people like, I'll play against viewers, but even when I do, I'm just kind of like, okay, but I do it just to do it because I know people like it. But my thing is like, what's the end result? Like I beat one of my viewers and then they feel bad that they lost, or they beat me and then they feel like they beat a big time streamer. Like if that's the case, I should just lose every time. But then nobody wants to play against me if I'm just going to lose every time. You know what I mean? So like, but I know it's fun for people and I'm cool. I'm okay with indulging that fun. I just always walk away feeling like I don't know if I achieved the goal for them or not. You know what I mean? So it's always a weird thing like that. Like, but some people are into that and I get it. So you just placate it and let them have their fun and they walk away and take whatever experience they want. But yeah, if I get a chance to get two big creators in a room, there's so many things I'd rather see them do or would be interested in other than just watching them play each other. That feels, two people playing each other feels like the, I don't know if I want to say the laziest level of content because there's still strategy and preparation and whatever, but I don't know. It just feels like maybe the most uncreative thing that two people with big audiences could do. I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, how much more interesting was it to have me come onto Dev's channel and we talked about, like, our sleeper picks and this and that and the other was more entertaining conversation than just getting to watch me and Dev play for, like, 20 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, we could have done that and that would have been fine. But, like, at the end of the day, it would have been like, oh, okay, well, we played the games. One of us won, one of us lost. Like, thanks, it was fun. But there's so much less to talk about when you're finished. Right? Honestly, and I'll be real with you, I don't even remember who won between CGB and Jim Davis. I remember seeing their videos because they did them in like wrestling style interviews, and that was kind of funny. like, and they were entertaining as hell, and it made it more of a spectacle, which is good. But I don't even remember who won between the two of them. And I do remember when like Croaky's, I think, was it a year ago already? Maybe it was the beginning of this year. But Croaky's put out the challenge where he challenged, I think it was 8. It was either 8 or 10 different like top level players or pros. And I think he ended up breaking even. So there was never, I think he went like 4-4 or something. But that was fun, right? Because there was a bunch of banner and trash talk back and forth. And then it was like run the gauntlet basically for like whatever that ended up being. It was like a 4-hour stream or something, I want to say, where he was like having to play against all these people. And like, it was pretty interesting, right? That was a much bigger to do. But again, he even said like you had to coordinate with everybody and there had to be all these rules and then you couldn't play the same decks multiple times. So the community had to pick different decks. And like, it was so much work to make happen for a thing that I remember the end result, but I don't remember the individual. Like I don't even remember who all he played, to be honest. I remember watching it, but I couldn't even tell you everybody he played. So it's definitely not as memorable, and there wasn't anything to take away from it other than just at the end. It was like, we went through all this and it was just a draw. I do remember the person who instigated it initially, if you want to call it instigated, whatever, fired it off, and got the whole challenge going with Croaky's. He won that game, or that match, if I remember right. So the main part of the grudge match, he beat that person. I can't remember who the person was, but I do remember that being important. And then that was it. I can't really even tell you enough about the other individuals. And that's kind of my thing, right? If I'm going to have the top level people doing something, like try to make it something that has more value, because you're getting a rare opportunity, right? Because those people are reworking their schedules to match up time and everything else. Usually having to make some technological changes so multiple people can be on each other's screens and, redoing their setups and whatever to make this happen. I'd rather see them do something just more productive. That's all my thing is. Like, if somebody really, now, don't get me wrong, if the majority of my community was like, man, I would love to see you just challenge other streamers and play them or whatever. And I'd be like, well, all right, if that's what people want to see, then I guess I'll just go do it. Because at that point, you're just saying, like, I do want to see this. And then I would go do it, but otherwise, like, am I going to be like motivated to just go do it on my own and pitch it as an idea? No, probably not. I also feel like I could create more beneficial long-term relationships with people by just doing better content that's not just gameplay. How do I feel about the arena shuffler? I think the arena shuffler is fine. Like, here's the thing. No matter what the shuffler is, we're all dealing with the same thing. Period. That's kind of at the end of the argument. Like, every pro player, every new player, all of us at the mid card, all the streamers, all the non-streamers, all the WotC employees, all the non-WotC employees, everybody plays with the exact same shuffler. So, the people that say, like, this happens to me more than everybody else, like, no, it doesn't. It's happening to all of us the same. Like, at some point, you just have to say, like, I'm just not doing well. Like, that's it at the end of the day. Like, it's a hard truth. It's a hard truth. I get it. It's hard as humans to want to look at ourselves and say we're the ones failing. Believe me, I'm dealing with that right now. But it just is what it is. Now, matchmaking, whole different story. Matchmaking, admittedly, again, just to be clear, matchmaking does not exist on the ladder. It does exist in open play. But even for that, yeah, they just needed... I don't know what the best system is. I'm not going to sit here. This is one of the ones I hate even talking about because I don't have a good recommendation. I like to at least try to suggest some things if I'm going to complain about a thing. This one's one I don't know, but I just know the numbers need to be shaken up. However, maybe it's their rating system for each card or whatever, but it looks at 4 or 5 different things, and that's what it uses to pair people up. Unfortunately, that does a lot of time lead to you getting like a similar type of deck or a deck with the same type of, I don't know, rating, I guess, if you want to call it that, based on the cards you're putting in your deck or whatever. So if you're playing Jank, you have a higher chance of running into Jank or whatever. If you're playing a, I don't know, mono-white aggro deck, you're probably going to run into like mono-white, mono-green or something of that level because it's going to probably rate out the same. So it sucks because you don't get to play against 6, 7 different decks. You're going to play probably against like 2 or 3 decks most of the time because that's what other people are going to have that are in the play queue that are of the similar rating. And, roughly the same length, age of the account, roughly the same size collections, or it looks for a few different things. But generally speaking, you're going to run into that. So that probably needs some type of work. I just don't know how you would grade it to get you otherwise, other than leave it just be a open play space. But then the problem is you increase the odds way too high that somebody with a arena beginner deck is going to get paired up against somebody with the testing a top tier tournament deck or something, and that's just an even worse experience. So as much as it sucks to go into the play queue and be like, I have to play against like, I don't know, black-white control for the 3rd time out of like 7 games, that's a bit frustrating. But imagine being the person who would have to play against either of your decks, and they have a new player deck, right? That's an abysmal experience. So I get what they're trying to do. I just don't know what the right solution is. Drew back-to-back 5-land hands today. It's all good. But you know what? But here's the thing. And the reason I say this is anybody who's played a ton of paper games, you have seen just as many weird things happen. You just haven't seen as many of them because you're not seeing as many hands in a short span. That's the only difference. Because if I get on right now and I play Arena for an hour, I'm going to play... Hell, if I'm playing best of 1, sometimes I could be 7 matches, 8 matches, if I'm lucky. At least 5 or 6. The reality is, though, in paper, in an hour, maybe 3 games get played. And that's if you're playing, at least one of you is playing a really fast deck or concedes early. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not a thing. So if you're talking about, over the course of a week, I mean, there's sometimes... If I play 2 or 3 hour stretches of Arena, I'm playing enough games at one time. Like, in that little window, that's equivalent to like 3 tournaments I would play on 3 consecutive weekends. You know what I mean? So just the volume of what you see looks worse, but it's really not that much worse. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. It definitely happens. And I've had games where I've drawn 12 lands in a row, in paper. I've drawn opening hand of 4 copies of a card. Or 6 lands, 1 spell. All of one land type, all cards of a different color. Right? I've had all those things happen. That's when people say, like, oh, well, this only happens in Arena. Like, BS. Anybody with any real experience to tell you that's not true. Hell, I've had that stuff like that happen in other games too, where I played like Hearthstone and I drew like all my 3+ cost things, and it's just like, well, that sucks. You know what I mean? Like, it happens. Like, it's just a thing. And the reality, and here's the truth to the whole thing. If a system is truly random, then those situations will happen. If those situations never happened, then the system cannot even remotely be considered random. Right? Just by the nature of being random, you have your positive outcomes, your negative outcomes, right? Some number of those negative outcomes you don't like will happen. That's part of it being random. If those never came up, that would mean there's something going on in the system that keeps these things from ever happening. Like that magically in the middle of the game, you'll never draw 3 lands in a row. Like, you can't have it both ways. Open Forest, Sol Ring, Azusa, 2 Forests, Sylvan Library, and Commander. Yeah, even in Commander, where you have one of everything, it happens, right? Like, people get those crazy starts in Commander with 100 cards, 99 cards, I guess, technically, but 100 cards and a bunch of one-ofs. You can still get crazy stuff to happen. So, yeah, like, when people say that, I'm like, here's the thing. You don't hear that complaint out of any of the major pro players. Like, think about that. The people who make a living playing Magic or making content or streaming or whatever, like, the people that are the best at it, none of them are the ones complaining about it ever. Right? If they were the ones complaining about it as a group, then you would have to go, okay, the people who do this for a living, who've played a lot of Magic, who play a lot of paper Magic even in testing, like, they have problems with this. Something's wrong. But it's never those people. And it's not like they get God accounts or anything else, nothing like that. We've seen some of them get bad draws even in the big tournaments online during coverage. So it's like, you can't even say like, oh, it never happens. No, it totally happens. And we've seen people have to mulligan to 5 and win and in games. We've seen people draw 3 lands in a row in clutch situations, right? Like, so at some point you have to say, like, if none of them have problems with it and they deal with the same issues we did with, it's even if we say there's something wrong with it, it affects everybody equally. That's when people say it's rigged, or it's like, cool. If you say something's rigged, you have to show me the group that it favors consistently. Because people are like, oh, well, it favors Wizards. And people have all these weird theories, by the way, that, well, it's encouraged you to spend more, and then if you spend more, you get less bad draws, and blah, blah. That's not true. We've had people already test. People that spent a bunch on their accounts, people that spent nothing on their accounts. Same things. Doesn't matter. Right? Already been disproven. So, like, people are trying to convince themselves of all these different things with the shuffler, and it's just not a thing. It's not. Like, it's really, really not. I get it. You have personal bias. You've experienced 2 or 3 bad things in a row, and it feels way worse than it is. But the reality is, we have real world situations. Dude didn't cut my deck. That's why I lost. Yeah, exactly. It's that same thing, right? Like, if a person would have done X, I would have won, right? It's if I would have shuffled one more time, like, it's like, no, like, come on. It's part of the randomness of the game. But seriously, I tell people, like, those are your easiest examples. Look at the highest level players and see that stuff still happens to them. So it's not even like, oh, it's favored against certain people, or Wizards makes it look good on coverage or whatever. Like, no, we see stuff happen to them. Right? Hell, we've seen it happen to, like, Seth Manfield, who is considered one of the biggest in bosses in competitive Magic in the last 5 years. You know what I mean? Like, if it happens to him and he's still cool with it, then it's not a problem with the shuffler. You know what I mean? Like, literally one of the end bosses gets hit with a couple of bad draws, and, like, he's like, yeah, it happens, whatever, it's Magic, whatever, right? There you go. If anybody should have a problem with it, it should be the people playing for the highest, literally for a year's worth of income in a match. You know what I mean? Like, no jokes, like, real money. $30, $40, $60,000 anti-matches effectively. And they're cool with it. So you can't be like, it's all this problem. Like, no, it's just not. It's just letting you cut decks would do nothing, Closet. Like, it literally wouldn't. You'd be putting extra animation and time into the game and more code to break. Like, it doesn't do anything. Like, the whole reason you do it in person is to reduce the potential for an opponent to have stacked their deck or do something. Like, in Arena, cutting has no purpose because the shuffler has no brain. It's literally just takes your 1 through 60 assignment, it picks a random order, puts things back in, and you have it. That's it. Right? So cutting it does nothing. All it would do is just take whatever random order it made up at that point, and then it would just move half of it to the bottom, and then you just have another random order. Like, literally has no purpose. Like, that's the thing. When people talk about that, and I have people, when I posted a video about the shufflers, fine, like, people got mad. People were super big mad about it. And I was like, well, you just got to be mad. Like, because like I told people, even if there is a problem, like, even if we agree there is a problem, it's the exact same problem we're all dealing with. So if it's affecting everyone equally, at some point, your results should balance out. Because let's assume you're going to play a couple hundred games. That's a big enough sample size that it would work out whatever kinks there are, because your opponents would also encounter that in reasonable number of times that you would. So it wouldn't matter anyway. Like, it just wouldn't. It's just not a thing. Hey, I'm just saying, like, it's a real topic for people. That's why I often tell people, like, shuffler ain't a problem. Like, I've literally had people who've, like, I've had people say I was a WotC shill, that WotC paid me to make the video, that I'm just trying to get more support and sponsor from Wizard of the Coast, which they don't even do, by the way. But, like, just so much stuff. Like, ugh. Like, just because you don't agree that the shuffler is broken. Right? Like, seriously. It's absolutely ridiculous what people try to convince themselves of. I don't understand it all. I don't get it. But a lot of times I think it's people just had some bad luck. They got a loss or two they didn't feel they should have gotten. And, you know, they're finding something to blame it on other than themselves or their deck or their gameplay or whatever. But like I said, at the end of the day, you can't have all... Oh, here's another one too. There's actually people, and I thought this was a joke at first till I encountered some of the people that actually believe... Now, here's the word. Okay. These people, first off, believe Wizard is so inept they can't make good technology and Arena sucks and whatever. And they can't get real programmers and all that, right? But those same people believe Wizards is also somehow smart enough to not even just manipulate the decks so they favor one person, that they actually favor streamers so they somehow magically know when you're streaming, so that way the deck gives you better draws so it looks better to your audience to encourage your audience to spend more on Arena. That is an actual conspiracy theory people have. Like, I actually had to somebody explain it a couple of times so I understood and made sure I knew what they were saying, because it's so ridiculous. And then I literally was like, you can't tell me somebody can't program something worth a damn, and then at the same time tell me that they are so technologically advanced that they can magically sense, because there's no way for the Arena to know if you're streaming or not. Like, because your streaming program doesn't go into Arena. Arena goes out into it. So there's literally no way for it to know. So they would magically have to have some sorcery of technology to know when I'm streaming. And then somehow, like, not only that, know you're streaming to an audience to where it would even matter to do the manipulation. And then anybody watching you now goes, oh, these decks look so awesome. I'm going to go spend all my money on Arena to build this exact deck. Like, it just doesn't work like that. Like, people at Wizards know it doesn't work like that. Like, it's crazy. Like, but these people really exist in the world. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, it would be insane. Like, the amount of loss would not be worth it. Like, plus, Magic is full of so many technological geeks and whatever, and connected to so many people in the gaming world, that somebody, if that was a real thing, would be able to see code or whatever, or things reading stuff in the background on their computer or whatever, and then there would definitely be lawsuits. So like literally the upside would definitely not be there. Like the downside would be horrendous. The downside would be crippling. You know what I mean? Like there's no way they would want to do that. That would be stupid. But it's wild, man. Magic fans online just want to complain. That's true. But like, we talked about conspiracy theories on our podcast one day. And one of the ones that came up that surprised me that I actually, well, one, there's people that still think birds aren't real, which is amazing to me. I don't know how that's a thing, but there's people that believe birds are not real. And there's people that believe Australia doesn't exist. Like, how? Like, we literally had the world converge on Sydney for the Olympics not long ago. Like, you can't tell me literally the entire world went to, like, families of people went to watch their significant others in Sydney. Like, you can see it from every telescopic shot from, like, a shuttle or the space station or whatever. Like, it's insane. It's insane. You're right, Billy. Sounds like a dude should have streamed his games. They probably should have. Whatever helps them sleep at night. Yeah, sure. Easy to do when everything new seems to power creep. That's fair. Started from people fun. Yeah, that's the thing, though. It became a thing that people actually believe. And I thought, like, I mean, literally, one, birds are so dumb, they just hit your windows in your house for no good reason and die because they just don't see where they're going. Like, anything that was programmable would not just fly into your window. And then you can literally see your cat go grab it, eat it, and munch through it, and there's no robotic parts. It's just a dumb bird, right? It's all flesh and blood. You've seen a bird while in Australia. See, you doubled down, so you disproved both at once. No, it's not. That's the thing. Like, it should be a joke, Dee. It should. It absolutely should be. But when I've met people who believe these, I'm just like, wow. Like, and I think some of it, you know, obviously, start out a joke, becomes like this giant meme. People that are easily manipulated or whatever start thinking about it, and then they read something that even remotely proves it, then they're all in on the theory. But yeah, people don't think Australia exists. Like that one, I just don't like. Even as absurd as the bird thing is, like the fact that Australia doesn't exist, that blew my mind. Like, that's one I'm just like, dude, like, if it's not Australia, then what's there? You know what I mean? Like, literally, boats can't travel through that space. What's there if it's not Australia? Like, I mean, is every single view we see from the sky, like, doctored? Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many random questions. Like, how could you not? And then what's even funnier when you think about it is there's literally millions of people walking around the earth making up an accent from a made up place if you believe Australia isn't real, which is really hilarious when you think about it. Like, you have to go real deep. It's so funny, man. It's so funny. But yeah, people, you're right. Like, people will convince themselves of all kinds of things. We just got flying dinosaurs. That's fair. We have a lot of things that are very much still like dinosaurs. But man. Anyway, I'm going to hop off for a bit. I'm going to go grab some food, y'all. Take a break before I hop over on Twitch. I think we're going to decide if we're going to play some regular standard or alchemy standard on Twitch tonight. I don't know which it's going to be just yet. I'm kind of good. Yeah, holograms I'm down with, though. I'm good with holograms. Like, that's a whole different conversation. I think we could still do a lot with holograms we're not doing yet. But yeah, we're going to have some fun tonight. Making fun of accents sounds like a fun hobby. That is kind of funny. But yeah, I appreciate the conversation, y'all. We talked about a lot of hard subjects today. It was, you know, I don't think it's where necessarily I intended for everything to go, but I'm kind of glad we had those talks. You know, I think it's good information to be out there. I think it's always good to start those conversations. Again, I apologize if anybody feels like I played the race card or something like that. It's just a matter of just like stats and looking around and things that we see. And I'm just reporting what's out there. And like I said, I would love for that not to be the problem. I'm actually hoping after I have this conversation with YouTube that it turns out that's not the problem. I would love for it to be something else. But so far, even the person I spoke to initially didn't have a good explanation. So things aren't looking good. But hopefully, who knows? Well, something will turn up and we'll get an explanation. But till then, like I said, I'm going to go get some food. And then if y'all catch me later, I will see you over on Twitch. Same name, twitch.tv/PowrDragn.